Chapter 1162. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others could tell that something big was about to happen from the Patriarch's deployment, so they focused all their attention on cultivation. They also knew that the opponent this time might be very powerful, but as members of the Sect of all times, they had to fight to the death no matter what. This was their home, and they couldn't allow outsiders to invade. Old Wu. In the universe, on the interstellar battleship leading the way, the powerful burly man asked, "How long will it take to find the murderer of the Navigator Monarch?" 7 or 8 days at the fastest, 1 month at the slowest, the white-haired old man replied. He only confirmed Jun Changxiao's appearance from the time reversal technique. If he wanted to find a hiding place in the vast universe, he had to deduce along the way. To be exact, he could only search by following the aura left behind by the murderer. He didn't have a lock on the falling star continent. That guy killed the Navigator Monarch and took away all the interspatial rings. The remnant scroll must be with him, the white-haired old man said with certainty. Of course. He was also a little surprised. From the mirror image, the murderer didn't seem old, but he could easily cut off the Navigator Monarch's head. Could it be that an experienced martial artist was pretending to be young? The scene the white-haired old man had deduced was that when Jun Changxiao killed the handsome man, the black and white double ghosts attacked. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come with such fanfare. Humph. The burly middle-aged man said coldly, "No one can take away something that we, the 5 tyrants of the universe, want." They had been searching for the 7 profound rays remnant scroll for a long time. It wasn't easy to find the Navigator Monarch, but someone else beat them to it. The white-haired old man didn't deduce where Jun Changxiao was in the falling star continent in 7 or 8 days because the aura suddenly stopped after traveling a certain distance. He had to search for a long time before he found it. Why did it stop? Because at that time, Jun Changxiao had already changed to an ancient battleship and used high-grade spirit stones to travel faster. So, there was almost no aura left for the white-haired old man to capture. At this rate, it would take at least a month to find the falling star continent. Jun Changxiao did not know when the storm would come, but since the epic quest had been given, it would definitely happen. Therefore, he was always on guard every day. Furthermore, he took the opportunity to summon the archaic warship and fly out to find a desolate plain not far from the Starfall continent. The black and white double ghosts could ignore the power of the universe and fight here and there, but Jun Changxiao couldn't. Thus, they had to choose a location in advance. It was very important to find a place before a fight. 10 days. 20 days. Time passed slowly. One day, Yi Xingchen walked out of the entrance of the 9 Heavens mystery realm. Instantly, a majestic aura erupted from his body. In the past month, he had been focusing on cultivation, and his cultivation had reached the peak of Wu Huang's level. What he had spent hundreds of years to accomplish in his previous life, he had accomplished in just a few years after his rebirth. His speed could be said to be super fast. The Taixuan Sutra did not contribute much to Yi Xingchen's rapid cultivation speed. The Sect of all times' various martial arts facilities were the greatest help, especially the 9 Heavens mystery realm that had been set up not long ago. This miraculous martial arts auxiliary tool made him realize that whether he could break through to Martial Emperor or shatter the void depended on it. Ah no. Jun Changxiao, who was sitting in the main hall, said, "Soon, there might be strong enemies coming. I hope you can fight for the sect and stand up for your fellow disciples." Why did he say that? Because in his opinion, Yi Xingchen did not have a strong sense of identity with the sect. He hoped that with the help of this invasion, he could cultivate that kind of unforgettable feeling that came from the bottom of his heart. Yi Xingchen said with a serious expression, "I will." "I'm very happy that you have a sense of identity with the sect," Jun Changxiao said with a smile. Yi Xingchen turned his face away and thought to himself, "I don't allow others to touch the sect of all times because I don't want to lose a cultivation holy land. Please don't misunderstand." "Okay, I got it." Damned Sundra. Yixingchen was not the only one who had a breakthrough. Lu Qianshan and He Wudi were also making rapid progress. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were not to be outdone. They were courageously chasing after them. In this month, the cultivation speed of the sect of all times core disciples could be described as skyrocketing. Everything is within my expectations. Jun Changshao said proudly. After reading the Nine Heavens Mystery Realms manual, he had already imagined the scene at this moment. After all, it was worth 100,000 contribution points. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, on the peak where the elders lived, a strong aura of advancement erupted. The disciples were so shocked that they all turned their heads to look. Elder Sun is about to break through to Wu Sheng. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others looked envious. This was the level they were looking forward to the most. Jun Changshao, who was lying in the main hall, said with a smile, "From today onwards, the sect of all times has another Wuxing level elder." However, a few days after Gongsun Haohai broke through to Wu Sheng, Jiangye, the Ning brothers, and Elder Gu, the four old F4S, also used the Nine Heavens Mystery Realms martial arts facilities to successfully enter the half-step Wu Sheng. Excluding the newly arrived black and white double devils, as well as the purple king and the other beasts, the sect of all times already had 2 Wu Sheng and 4 half-saints. This was very tough. Patriarch Li Qingyang reported, of the 2,000 inner disciples, 300 are Wu Huang, and the rest are all martial kings. When Jun Changshao was outside, the sect was not in a static state. For example, the sect's annual sect competition would be held as promised, and the disciples with good results would enter the inner sect. Now, there were 2,000 people in the sect. In fact, according to the standards of other sects, the outer sect disciples who failed to be selected were qualified to enter the inner sect. However, in a competition between a group of geniuses, only geniuses could be selected. It was no exaggeration to say that the sect of all times' annual sect competition was more exciting and intense than the highest level competition on the Starfall continent. It was a bit like Wuxia's table tennis. It might be easy to go out and win the world championship, but it would be hell to come back and win the national games. After listening to the report, Jun Changshao ordered, "Let them continue to cultivate. Don't be distracted for even a moment." Yes. Li Qingyang hurriedly went to make arrangements. Jun Changshao continued to patrol the various halls as usual. However, just as he arrived at the Drizzle Hall, White Rakshas's voice rang in his ears, "Little brother, there are dozens of interstellar warships rushing over." Dozens of warships? The interstellar sailing king had so many enemies. The handsome man's warship could hold tens of thousands of people. Now that dozens of warships were coming, there must be a lot of people. Disciples, listen up. Jun Changshao said in a clear voice, "Follow me onto the ancient warship." Yes. Whoosh! Whoosh! The entire sect of all times suddenly became lively. The sect's upper echelons, led by Old Ding, flew to the warship docked outside Ironbone Mountain. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the other core disciples followed closely behind. In a short time, the ancient warship could hold thousands of people. The camera panned over them one by one. They were all wearing excellent armor and represented the sect of all times' strongest combat power. Whoosh! Jun Changshao flew over last and stood at the bow of the warship. His spiritual senses entered the engine. With a whoosh, the ancient warship flew out of the falling star continent and hovered in the endless dark universe. The disciples who did not follow were all silently praying for the patriarch, elders, and senior brothers, hoping that they could return safely. Because Li Qingyang and the others had followed them when they were searching for the location of the battle, they did not look around. Instead, they were on high alert at all times. Patriarch. Old Ding pointed into the distance and said, "What is that?" In the seemingly endless darkness, there were dozens of light spots the size of rice grains. They grew bigger and bigger, and the distance between them grew closer and closer. On the first warship, the white-haired old man sitting cross-legged suddenly opened his eyes. His turbid gaze seemed to pierce through the void and locked onto the young man on the warship. He said in a low voice, "This kid is the murderer." Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, dozens of warships accelerated and hovered in the distance with a powerful aura. Martial artists of all shapes and sizes appeared on the deck. They looked at Jun Changshao and the Sect of all time's disciples with ferocious and mocking eyes. There was actually a warship docked in the starry sky of a low-tier plane. It seemed like it was waiting for us. Now that was interesting. Ha ha ha. One of the 5 hegemons stood at the bow of the warship and laughed eerily. I thought that the one who stole the scroll was a top-tier expert. Turns out it was just trash from a low-tier plane. Ding! One punch surekill charged at 5%. Damn! It was charged just like that. Jun Changshao was stunned. However, he cupped his fists and said, "The hospitable falling star welcomes you." Chapter 1163. Welcome. Does this guy think we're here to play? Ha ha ha. The martial artists on the dozens of warships roared with laughter. The disdain and contempt in their eyes grew stronger. The white-haired elder was more composed. He asked, "So, you're from the Falling Star continent?" He had a star map with most of the dimensions marked on it, so he quickly learned the name of the continent below the Archean battlefield. His companion was right. This was indeed a very trashy dimension. Even the desolate plain where the handsome man had died had stronger spatial barriers than this one. The Falling Star continent in ancient times was actually not too bad, but after it split apart, the situation deteriorated. That's right. Jun Changshao was still smiling. However, Yi Xingqian, who was standing behind him, was filled with killing intent. The warships were already ugly, and now they were laughing without restraint. They were so ugly that one could not bear to look at them directly. If Night Emperor had his peak cultivation, he would definitely fly over and smash the warships to pieces to prevent his eyes from being wronged. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others frowned. Those martial artists who looked like subordinates were not weak. If they fought with them, it would be very interesting. On the battlefield, Gou Sheng had killed tens of thousands of people and shocked the other dimensions. He could only find martial artists from the Spirit Origin continent to spar with him. However, he still adhered to the principle of friendship first and learning from each other, so he could not feel anything from the fight. Now that these uninvited guests were all powerful and came with ill intentions, they should be able to use their strength to their heart's content. Under the Patriarch's leadership, they had all become warmongers. Moreover, they always remembered the sect's #1 motto to be indifferent to life and death. The white-haired elder said, "You killed the interstellar navigation monarch." That's right. You also took the spatial ring. That's right. Jun Changshao answered all the questions. This also made the 5 hegemons certain that the 4th volume of the 7 Mystic Sunglow fragment was on him. Not only that. 1, 2, 3, and 3 were also here. Brothers, if you can get rid of Gou Sheng, not only will the readers be overjoyed, but they will also guarantee that they will immediately reach the peak of their lives. Brat. The gloomy man sneered and said, "You took the initiative to fly out and wait for us. I'm afraid you're worried that the plane will be affected. If that's the case, why don't you hurry up and hand over the scroll? Maybe I'll be happy and spare your dog life." Ding! Charge 10% for one punch kill. Another 5 points. As expected, it's the same as what I remember. If the opponent you meet is arrogant enough, you can kill them with one punch. Of course. What surprised Jun Changshao was that the other party actually wanted him to hand over the remnant scroll. 7 Mysterious Sunglow Broken Scroll. Fuck. He had only bought it for a short period of time, and he hadn't even had the time to cultivate it. He hadn't even distributed it to his disciples, yet the thief had already come knocking on his door. This was way too fast. The system was speechless. Volume 2, The Rose Queen. Volume 3, The Black and White Double Breaks. Now that the host had bought Volume 4, the people who were related to it had come again. How small was the universe for them to meet so easily? The system muttered, I wonder where the unlucky bastard from Volume 1 is. That unlucky bastard, Volume 1, was currently standing in front of Jun Changshao, looking indifferently at the 5 martial emperors with strength comparable to martial emperors. If I had the cultivation of peak Wuxia right now, he thought to himself, I should be able to defeat any one of the 5 of them. People who came down from the upper echelons were just that confident. Friend. Jun Changshao looked at the gloomy man, clasped his fists and said, looking at your imposing appearance and extraordinary martial prowess, you must be a big shot in the universe, right? He had already figured out the pattern, and a plan formed in his mind. Brat. The gloomy man said proudly, your strength isn't much, but your eyesight is not bad. That's right. I am one of the 5 hegemons of the universe, who has rampaged across the universe for thousands of years, killing gods and Buddhas. Ding. Charge 20% for one punch kill. As expected. Jun Changshao thought to himself, as long as this guy acts cool, he will charge. After understanding the principle of one punch kill, Go Sheng was secretly delighted, because he could rely on his mouth to make the opponent even more arrogant and crazy, thus quickly reaching the release condition. What was this? Others act cool, but he became stronger. So you are one of the 5 hegemons of the universe, sorry for the disrespect. Jun Changshao clasped his fists and said. Humph, the gloomy man raised his head proudly. Ding. Charge 25% for one punch kill. Charging even with a snort, this guy was really arrogant and despotic. Since you are all here to ask for the remnant scroll, please follow me, Jun Changshao said politely. He needed to bring these uninvited guests out of the falling star continent as soon as possible. After all, if he attacked directly, the continent would definitely not be able to withstand the aftershock. The gloomy man was not brainless, and saw through Jun Changshao's intention, so he said calmly, if you are worried about the continent being destroyed, quickly hand over the remnant scroll and martial arts resources, and we might not make things difficult for you and this trash plane. Ding. Charge 30% for one punch kill. Jun Changshao said seriously, I have placed the remnant scroll in a deserted plain far away. As long as you go there, you will naturally get it. Is that so? A hint of hesitation appeared in the white-haired old man's eyes. When he came, he had thought about it many times. The murderer who could kill the handsome man was extraordinary, and even if he obtained the remnant scroll, he would have to pay a price. He did not expect the other party to be so weak and so cooperative. No. The white-haired old man said telepathically, it might be a trap. Old Wu. The gloomy man said disdainfully, even if a trash from a low-level plane has some tricks up his sleeve, he is still just a pitiful ant in front of me. Ding. Charge 60% for one punch kill. Jun Changshao was dumbfounded when he suddenly heard that the value had increased by 30 points. That guy did not say anything, so why did it increase again? Could it be that when acting cool to the extreme, a casual glance could trigger the condition? Kid. The gloomy man sneered and said, lead the way. However, let me remind you, don't play any tricks. Otherwise, even if you run to the upper realm, you will die. Tisk, the black-white double ghosts in the dark laughed coldly. Not only were there strong barriers to the upper realm, but there were also heavenly Tao laws. That guy said that it was like his own backyard, and that he could enter and leave as he pleased. The gloomy man's act of acting cool made the black-white double ghosts unable to continue watching. Without a doubt, they also increased the charge of one punch kill from 60% to 90%. If all the opponents I meet in the future are so arrogant and despotic, then I will really be invincible. Jun Changshao thought to himself as he controlled the ancient warship to fly toward the desolate plain he had chosen. The 5 hegemons of the cosmos immediately followed for the remnant scroll. Dozens of warships followed behind the ancient warship, and the formation was quite intense. The white-haired old man said, "This kid will definitely not hand over the remnant scroll so easily. We must not be careless, lest we fail miserably." The coarse man and the other 2 nodded. The gloomy man said calmly, "This guy should be going to a desolate plain far away. When he reaches there, you don't have to do anything. Leave it to me." Whoosh! The ancient warship cut through the cosmos. After a while, it penetrated the space barrier and merged with the desolate plain. There were no living beings here, and it was all barren land. It was very suitable for battle. It would be fine even if the entire continent was destroyed. Whoosh! 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 Old Ding, the Purple King, Li Qingyang, and the others jumped off the warship. They got into formation and started to warm up before the battle. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dozens of warships also flew in. Whoosh! Whoosh! However, before the warship could come to a stable stop, the gloomy man unleashed his martial emperor-level cultivation and gathered his powerful energy to suppress the warship. The range of his aura was very wide. It was obvious that he was not only going to capture Jun Changshao but also kill all the disciples of the sect of all times. This was a ruthless person. This is a little troublesome. The black-white double ghosts in the dark were about to rush out. No need. However, just as they moved, they heard Jun Changshao's voice. "Leave it to me. Leave it to him." The black-white double ghosts were a little confused. If this sworn brother of theirs had turned into a stone statue, they would not be worried at all. However, he had not used the stone statue race's special ability. How could he face a martial emperor? Whoosh! 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 Violent airwaves pressed down from the sky. The space of the barren land could not withstand it and started to crack. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others stood behind Jun Changshao. They felt the suffocating aura. Their faces gradually turned hideous, and beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. A martial emperor was so terrifying. It was strange. Faced with such an unsolvable situation, they were only suppressed by the aura because the patriarch was standing beside them. They did not feel any fear. "Brat! How dare you snatch something that the 5 hegemons of Starry Sky want? Today, you will compensate with the lives of your subordinates." The gloomy man's eyes flashed with strong murderous intent as he descended from the sky. He smiled disdainfully as if all the living beings below were ants in his eyes. "Compensate with the lives of my disciples." Jun Changshao was completely enraged when he thought of Shi-Shi's mission. Stomp! He took a step forward and said angrily, "How dare you hurt my disciples? I will send you to heaven first." Boom! There were no fancy moves or superfluous battle descriptions. An explosive force instantly rippled from the barren land, and then dust and huge ripples filled the sky. Ka ka ka. Wherever the energy wave passed, space and ground quickly cracked. Swish! Bam 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 bam. The gloomy man flew out of the dust like a cannonball and directly passed through his own battleships. The entire sky instantly exploded, and the scorching flames dyed the originally dark environment red. The black and white Rakshas's eyes were wide open as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. On the battleship at the front of the team that was not affected, the white-haired old man, the burly middle-aged man, and the others were also stunned. The 6 of them could clearly see what had just happened. Therefore, the shock brought by that scene was insanely strong. Whoosh! 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 The wind whistled, and the dust scattered. The camera looked down from above. With Jun Changshao as the center, there was a crater that was at least 50 kilometers deep. As for old Ding, Li Qingyang, and the others, they staggered and struggled to stand. Question marks appeared on their faces. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? These 3 sentences could describe the feelings of everyone in the sect of all times at this moment. Because the scene just now was too sudden, so sudden that they did not see anything. Wait! Why are there strands of hair floating down? Everyone gradually calmed down and hurriedly looked up. They saw Jun Changshao standing on one leg and the other leg raised high in a bombardment position. Tufts of black hair were blown away by the wind until it was blown clean, revealing a shiny head. Patriarch, he, bald. 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 The system's roar echoed in Jun Changshao's ears. You could have killed him with one punch. Why did you use your leg? Chapter 1164. The gloomy man floated in the dark sky. His mouth was open, and his expression was ferocious. A clear footprint could be seen on his chest. From this person's point of view, one could see the desolate plain used for battle. He could even see a giant hole in the spatial barrier that separated the plain from the outside world. The gloomy man had used his body to break through the barrier. He was already dead, and the fatal wound was the footprint on his chest. He died just like that. The black-white twin ghosts retracted their spiritual senses, their eyes filled with shock. As top-notch experts in the mortal world, the 2 of them clearly saw Jun Changshao kick the gloomy man away when he tried to press down on him. That kick had been clean and efficient, and it hadn't required too much resources. But the more it was like that, the more terrifying its power was. It had even directly pierced through the spatial barrier of a plane. The spatial barrier of a plane was the kind that space-time worms could gnaw on. It was the final line of defense that connected the plane to the universe. Under normal circumstances, powerful cultivators could shake space when fighting on the continent, but that was only at the ordinary level. If one wanted to break through the spatial barrier of a plane, they had to have the ability to shatter the void. Jun Changshao had kicked the gloomy man out of the universe and even killed him with a single kick. This meant that he had already reached this level. That was why the black-white twin ghosts were so shocked. The patriarch hadn't used any mystical abilities, and he hadn't turned into a stone statue. How could a single kick be so ferocious? Or could it be that his cultivation had already reached the level of a martial emperor, or even higher? Had he been pretending to be weak all this time? Trump card. Senior Tong Gu gave him a trump card. The black-white twin ghosts quickly came to a conclusion. Jun Changshao couldn't possibly have such a terrifying cultivation. His sudden eruption of power was definitely related to Senior Tong Gu. After all, he was a personal disciple. He had even given him the ancient worship. How could he lack a life-saving trump card at a critical moment? That's it. The black-white twin ghosts confirmed their thoughts. At the same time, they also understood why the patriarch had been so calm from the start. It turned out that he had a powerful trump card. Logically speaking, the 3 of them definitely couldn't afford to lose. However, because Jun Changshao's kick had been too fast and caused too much of a commotion, they hadn't been able to catch it with their current cultivation. They could only stare blankly at the giant hole in the sky. What's going on? 5th brother. The eyes of the other 4 of the 5 tyrants of starry sky were suffused with monstrous anger, but it was also mixed with an especially strong fear. The gloomy man's strength was not below theirs, but he was actually kicked to death. Just how terrifying was this young man's strength? Sigh. Jun Changshao put down his foot and said indifferently, "You really can't take a kick." The corners of the black-white double devil's mouths twitched violently. "My little brother, with that simple kick of yours just now, if it were us brothers, we would have died on the spot as well." However, the black and white double breaks took a long time to react. It took them quite a while before they roared inwardly, why are you bald after kicking him? At this point, Jun Changshao felt like crying. After the one-punch kill had reached 100%, he felt an extremely explosive power gathering in his body. He could even control it at will. Thus, he had a flash of inspiration. Why not use his feet to avoid the side effects? That was a good idea. Reality was cruel. The strength of one-punch kill didn't lie in the punch, but in the word kill. Regardless of whether it was punches, kicks, fingers, or buttocks, as long as the user met the sure kill requirement, the user's hair would inevitably fall off. Unsealing unstoppable blade and entering a weakened state, activating one-punch kill would instantly cause hair to fall off. All of these met the conditions of an equivalent exchange. It's not a big problem. The system comforted him. The host has a hair growth agent. His hair will reach his waist by the next day. Jun Changshao broke down. Why do I feel that these words are a bit unreliable coming from the mouth of a toxic healer like you? Pfft. Suddenly, laughter came from behind him. Jun Changshao, with his shiny head, hurriedly turned around and saw Su Xiaomua trying hard to hold back his laughter with one hand. His face was red from holding back his laughter. Xiao Ziji and Li Fei lowered their heads. The two of them really didn't dare to look at the patriarch. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to control their emotions and laugh out loud. Pfft. It would have been better if Jun Changshao hadn't turned around. Now that he did, Su Xiaomua, who had undergone strict training, couldn't help but laugh out loud again. In the end, no matter how funny it was, he wouldn't laugh unless he couldn't help but burst out laughing. Laughter was contagious. Li Fei, who was still trying to hold back his laughter, heard Su Xiaomua laughing. He couldn't help but squat on the ground and laugh wildly with one hand covering his face. The most exaggerated one was Li Tian, who was already lying on the ground laughing. To be honest, the shiny head of the patriarch was simply too funny. Bang! 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 3 streaks of fist light flashed past. Su Xiaomua, Li Fei, and Li Tian stood neatly with big bumps on their heads. Their expressions were extremely serious. Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head. Coincidentally, he saw Li Qingyang from the corner of his eyes. He found that not only was he standing upright, but his expression didn't change. He immediately felt gratified. My second disciple is still the most reliable. Second senior brother. Su Xiaomua asked for advice. How did you do it? Li Qingyang said, sealing my vision. So that's how it is. Why didn't I think of it? At this time, except for the truly reliable Lu Qianqian and Yixingqian, Xiao Ziji, He Wudi, and the others all sealed their vision. Because the bald head of the patriarch was really a test of their ability to hold back their laughter. Everyone. Jun Changshao turned around, and a ray of light flashed in his head. He said, "Do you still want my remnant book?" His voice was flat, and there was no strong aura. It was as if he was an ordinary person. The more he was like this, the more the 4 tyrants felt the pressure. After all, the scene of the cold man being kicked to death was still vivid in their minds, and it was still echoing in their sea of consciousness. This was deterrence, this was deterrence. The black and white double breaks, who were originally quite worried, were now safely hiding in the dark. With the explosive kick of the patriarch just now, not to mention dealing with the other 4 powerhouses, it would be easy to destroy everyone on the warship. Elder Wu. The coarse middle-aged man transmitted his voice. What do we do? He really wanted to get the 7 profound Sunglow remnant book, but the young man opposite him killed his companion with one kick. It was too terrifying, and he had to follow his heart. The white-haired old man frowned. At this time, he finally understood why the Starry Sky Navigation Monarch was killed with one strike. This person is strong. We can't fight him head-on. Retreat? If we can't do it openly, we'll do it secretly. After a short discussion, the four of them reached a consensus to escape as soon as possible. It was really difficult for them to give up on the remnant book. After all, they had been searching for a long time. If they couldn't do it openly, they could only do it secretly. Patriarch. White Rakshasa transmitted her voice. These people are thinking of retreating. Retreating? Jun Changxiao's lips curled into a smile. He immediately took out the first, second, third, and fourth copies of the remnant book. He smiled and said, I don't only have remnant book 4. I also have remnant books 1, 2, 3, and 3. The four tyrants, who were about to retreat, saw this and their eyes burned. It's the same as recorded. The white-haired old man immediately judged from the shape of the remnant books that these were the 7 mysterious light-break remnant books that they had been searching for. And there were 4 of them at once. They couldn't retreat. They had to get them. A strong sense of greed took over their mind, forcing the 4 tyrants to give up their plan to escape. They stared at the 4 remnant books. Everyone. Jun Changxiao said loudly, if your subordinates can defeat the disciples behind me, these 4 remnant books will be given to you with both hands. The 4 tyrants looked at each other. They didn't know what the other party was up to. There wasn't anything special. They just wanted to use this opportunity to provide their disciples with more powerful combat opportunities. The white-haired old man fell into deep thought, wondering if the other party had any other tricks. But the burly middle-aged man standing next to him couldn't stand it anymore. He said coldly, if that's the case, then we'll accept it. Shwa. He waved his hand. Whoosh. 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 Thousands of disciples jumped out of the warships under his control. Their strength was comparable to the level of King Wu, Wu Huang, and even Wu Sheng. Snap. Jun Changxiao snapped his fingers and said, babies, start your performance. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Behind him, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others flew over. They stood dozens of meters away from the thousands of warriors in various postures. The aura that emerged seemed to turn into wolf skins on their bodies, and their eyes gradually became sharp. Ah! The Purple King shouted angrily. Ah, ah, ah. However, no matter how his blue veins bulged and how his aura erupted, the clothes that Jun Changxiao gave him not long ago seemed to stick to his skin. They couldn't burst his skin at all. Chapter 1165. After Yuan Gongzi became the patriarch, the number of times the Purple King's clothes exploded had decreased. After all, it was directly related to the beast core. However, this time, he had to be extra serious when facing a martial artist from the starry sky. Therefore, he stood in front of the disciples and unleashed a powerful aura. However, the powerful demonic aura came out, but the clothes on his body shrank tighter and tighter, as if they were stuck to his skin and could not burst. Ah! 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 The Purple King tried a few more times. His aura of fighting by shouting reached its peak. His face was red and he was about to fart, but his clothes still did not explode. They even turned into tights. It had to be said. Indestructible clothes were really a product of conscience. More importantly, the style was very novel and did not have the old-fashioned feeling. The 4 tyrants of Starry Sky, at this time, if they were not in a serious state of battle, they might have collectively held their stomachs and laughed. Because below, stop howling. Jun Changxiao said telepathically, the clothes I gave you are the same style as your underwear. The Purple King suddenly broke down. For him, who would only feel comfortable when he was naked, this was equivalent to losing his soul. Go. At this time, the burly middle-aged man did not care what the purple-haired sand eagle was doing. He immediately ordered his subordinates to attack. Huff, huff, huff. In an instant, 6 powerhouses comparable to martial saints shot over. All kinds of energy surged toward the purple craggy monster king like a tidal wave. The purple craggy monster king gave up on tearing off his clothes. His eyes instantly turned cold. Boom! Boom! All kinds of attacking energies suddenly exploded. The purple craggy beast king flew out from the raging winds and punched the martial saint closest to him in the face with a fist that seemed to have been tempered thousands of times. Bang, crack, crack, crack. The space collapsed and the cold wind was like a knife. After the purple king sent Wuxia flying, he actually took off one of his sleeves. When he sent another opponent flying, he also took off his left sleeve. Indestructible clothes could be worn and taken off. Therefore, he wanted to take them off as he fought. Thus, he released himself and had an absolute soul. There's no cure. Jun Changshao shook his head. Boom! Boom! On the other side, Old Ding, Gongsun Haohai, Jiangya, and the other upper echelons of the sect had already started fighting with the stronger enemies, Wuxia and the semi-sage. All kinds of energy lights flickered in the sky, indicating that the chaotic battle would be extremely intense. As expected. This kind of battle where there were many people and all of them had decent strength was absolutely thrilling and pleasing to the eye. However, the space was also suffering because the more exciting the battle was, the more it would shatter. Boom! Purple craggy monster monarch punched again. At this moment, the clothes on his body had already fallen to the ground, leaving only his red underwear on his body. This was Jun Changxiao's bottom line. The subordinates of the four hegemons of Starry Sky were dumbfounded. Not only had they seen many fights, but they had also experienced many of them. However, it was definitely the first time they had seen someone take off their clothes in the middle of a fight. Talent. What a fucking genius. Boom. After taking off his clothes, the Purple King, who seemed to be infused with his soul, became more powerful. He threw a punch at Wu Xing's face and sent him flying a few hundred feet away. He fell to the ground and spat out blood. His meridians were damaged. In the past, Hall Master Z could fight against Wu Xing alone, but he couldn't cause too much damage. Now that he had experienced the Nine-Heaven Mystery Realm, it was easy for him to severely injure Wu Xing in a chaotic battle. Whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, an enemy powerhouse who was comparable to Wu Xing at the Great Perfection stage unleashed a majestic aura. It pressed down like a tsunami. The Purple King raised his eyebrows. He put on the pink gloves and destroyed the enemy's aura. He then started the most intense battle in the sky. It was very difficult to fight against the heaven-class battlefield spirits in the dimensional battlefield. Now, it was easy for him. Hall Master Z wasn't the only one whose strength had skyrocketed. Ding Xingwang was also fighting against a few powerhouses who were comparable to Wu Xing. It would have been impossible in the past. Jiangya, Old Go, and the other old F4 members weren't as fierce, but they were half-saints. They could still suppress those at the same level as them. They were the subordinates of the 5 hegemons of the universe. They had been fighting in the universe all year round. If it were a martial artist at the same level in the Falling Star continent, they would be defeated in a few dozen moves. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Boom. 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 Li Qingyang held the heavenly slaughter thunder mark in the air. He infused the thunder element into the sword and slashed down with a light that could tear space apart. Puchi. Puchi. The thunder element sword light brought up a mist of blood wherever it passed. During this period of cultivation in the thunder heaven, not only did his level increase, but he also became more familiar with the use of the thunder element. So, he was able to severely injure several Wu Huang with one slash. In stark contrast, Yi Xingchen summoned the Li Shang offering sacrifice to the heavens and threw it at the dozens of martial artists who were attacking him. With a flash of light, the same number of martial artists appeared. Swoosh! 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 The wine jars, which looked like flying guillotines, instantly landed on the heads of the four hegemons of the universe. Then, with the sound of something being cut apart, they turned into headless corpses on the spot. When it came to killing, Yi Xingchen was always more decisive than Li Qingyang. Whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. All of a sudden, dozens of forces from two different directions pressed down on him. Yi Xingchen stood in the air and didn't move. Because when the forces came, Xiao Ziji flew over to face him. The cloud boat hero on his back absorbed all the forces. The two went out to train together all year round, so they had a great tacit understanding. You defend, I'll attack. Okay. Swoosh. 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 Yi Xingchen went around from the side, and the dozens of wine jars that were suspended in the air instantly combined together and were thrown towards the enemy crowd that was further away. The word attack, that was printed on the Lingyan pavilion faintly appeared on the back of his hand. Kill. Kill. The four hegemons of the universe didn't cower because of their companion's tragic death. They rushed over at a faster speed and gathered more power. However, they couldn't stop Yi Xingchen. Because Xiao Zui activated the cloud boat hero to form an absolute defense in the path. As the core disciples of the sect of all times who focused on offense and defense, once the two of them worked together, they would definitely be successful in both offense and defense. Swoosh. 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 The Li Shang ritual split up again and covered the heads of the four hegemons of the universe. During this time, the forces coming from all directions were all blocked by the cloud boat hero's defensive barrier. Trash. Yi Xingchen said coldly, die. Puchi. Puchi. The wine jars on the enemies' heads flashed. Heads were instantly cut off, and corpses fell to the ground. Then, Yi Xingchen and Xiao Ziji moved among the enemies with their strongest attacks and strongest defenses. They were like two death gods from hell, crazily harvesting lives. The Yi Xiao duo's combat power was off the charts. Under the two's joint efforts, a half-step wuxing expert was also killed. However, in another battle area, the Su Fei duo also attracted attention. Swoosh. Swoosh. Su Xiaoma activated the body of Gale and moved among the enemies as fast as a meteor. Even the half-step wuxing couldn't hit him. Ah, I'm such a failure. My parents made the biggest mistake by giving birth to me. Li Fei put two fingers on his temple. The power of depression spread like a ghost. Dozens of Wu Huang-level martial artists knelt on the ground and howled. This ability to control thoughts and generate negative emotions wasn't invincible. Many high-level martial artists with strong minds weren't affected. Get lost. Bang. 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 Su Xiaoma, who was moving among the enemies, used Li Fei's power of depression to control his legs frequently. Because the speed was too fast, when he rushed out, he wiped his nose and laughed. Dozens of martial artists seemed to be released from the slow motion and then flew out in all kinds of ways. The Su Fei duo's attack was a bit fancy. He Wudi, who rushed into the crowd, was really tough. Wherever his feet and fists passed, the enemy martial artists flew out. One punch was enough to kill a monster. Crack. 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 Suddenly, the cold air spread, and bits of ice appeared. The originally hot environment gradually became cold, as if goose-feather heavy snow would fall at any time. Not good. My body is slowed down. Ice martial arts, there is an ice martial arts. Hundreds of subordinates of the four tyrants of the starry sky were trapped in the cold area, and all aspects were greatly slowed. Even the martial kings were covered with ice and could become ice sculptures at any time. Lu Qianqian, who seemed to be otherworldly, stood sideways. Her black hair fluttered in the cold air, revealing an impeccable face. She gently raised her right hand, and an ice pattern of several feet appeared under her feet. The extremely cold air whistled and burst out. Fire, fire, fire. An enemy martial artist roared. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, dozens of martial artists who were not covered by the ice burst out their attributes, forming a sky full of momentum toward Lu Qianqian. However, just as they were about to close in, little Long Long, who was in its second form, stepped forward and immediately opened its mouth, swallowing all the dozens of flames into its stomach. The enemy martial artists were shocked. This kind of released fire attribute, even if one touched it, they would be burned. How could it be eaten directly? Disgusting. Little Long Long frowned and said, "I'll return it to you." Ta! This guy assumed the posture of a calabash brother, opened its mouth and spewed out rolling flames. Not good. Retreat, retreat, retreat. The wave-like flames ruthlessly rushed over, not giving them a chance to escape at all. Those who were swallowed could only be burned into nothingness. The absorbed flames did not cause any harm to little Long Long, but after brewing in its stomach, the fire and firepower were instantly strengthened. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "Playing with fire in front of my contract beast is like playing with a knife in front of Guan Yu." Swish! Swish! Long Xiang, Song Xianzhou, and the others took advantage of senior sisters slowing down to charge in. After a burst of sword and spear light, the hundreds of enemy martial artists who were bound all fell to the ground. The disciples of the sect of all times who wore the skin of wolves were full of the nature of wolves. Therefore, after a short fight, the thousands of subordinates sent by the burly middle-aged man were mostly dead. 4. Jun Changshao said, "This amount of manpower is not enough for my disciple to warm up. If you want to get the first, second, third, and fourth scroll fragments, it's best to send all of you." He had a few thousand people on his side, and the other side had sent a few thousand as well. Were they looking down on his disciples' ability to fight with fewer people? To be honest. In a situation where the number of people and cultivation levels were about the same, even if they had a slight advantage, going head-on with the sect of all times would only result in them being beaten up. The white-haired old man and the others frowned. "Go!" The burly middle-aged man roared. His thousands of subordinates were almost all dead. If the three of them did nothing, it would be unbearable. The seemingly shrewd white-haired old man pondered for a moment, then waved his hand and said, "Everyone, go together." Swish! Swish! On the battleships behind him, 5,000 subordinates flew out. When the other two tyrants saw that old Wu had sent out troops, they also hurriedly signaled their subordinates to move out. Therefore, after Li Qingyang and the others had basically wiped out the burly man's subordinates, they still had to face nearly 20,000 martial artists. 2,000 against 20,000. Jun Changshao smiled and said, "This number is a little more stressful." The disciples of the sect of all times who had just experienced a battle saw that the other party had sent out so many people. Their eyes flashed with battle intent, and the blood in their bodies burned madly. On the interdimensional battleships, they often sparred with the martial artists from the Lingyuan continent. They could not go all out. Now that they were facing these uninvited guests, every move was very satisfying. Fight! 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 Life and death, the cycle of reincarnation never ends. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, "We live, they die. Kill! Kill! Whoosh whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh!" The disciples of the sect of all times surged with an unyielding aura and charged forward. The sky was filled with crimson sky raging flame slash and 7 mystic sunglow slash. It seemed to have pierced through the void, outlining the most magnificent scene. "The three of you." Although the white-haired elder stared at the battlefield without blinking, he privately transmitted his voice, "Let's find a chance to attack and snatch the 4 remnant manuals." Okay. The 3 tyrants agreed. The white-haired elder reminded, that kid's strength is unfathomable. Remember, we're mainly after the remnant manuals. Once we get them, we'll leave immediately. Don't fight him head-on. He was really a little afraid of Jun Changshao, but he did not want to leave just like that. He could only gamble and snatch the 4 remnant manuals. Boom! Boom! The battle between the disciples of the sect of all times and the subordinates of the 4 tyrants became more and more intense. Due to the great disparity in numbers, the disciples of the sect of all times seemed to be at a disadvantage. Push over. Don't give them a chance to catch their breath. One of the enemy experts yelled. Whoosh! 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 Thousands of martial artists pressed over from a low-altitude position, like a raging storm. However, as they fought, they collapsed. This was because after paying a huge price, they were about to kill a disciple of the sect of all times. In the end, the other party ate a pill and became lively again. At this moment, the effect of the healing pill was fully displayed. Although it was difficult for the disciples of the sect of all times, who did not have the advantage in numbers, to gain an absolute advantage, each of them had a pill. As long as they were not killed instantly, it was equivalent to having 2 lives. 2,000 against 20,000 was difficult. 4,000 against 20,000. Moreover, the disciples of the sect of all times were fully equipped with excellent equipment. Even if the subordinates of the 4 tyrants of Starry Sky could severely injure them, the price would be the sacrifice of many of their companions or the exhaustion of their own energy. Then, they would have to face them in their peak condition. The 5 of them focused on a tank that was tanky and had high damage output. They spent a lot of time and used up all their skills and mana. In the end, the other party revived and got back up. Their mentality was going to explode immediately. Cutting a crispy double C. Sorry, but any disciple of the sect of all times could be CC, anyone could be CC. What was despair? Seeing that you were about to be killed, eating a pill and continuing to fight with you in peak condition was the greatest despair. At this moment, the disciples of the sect of all times were not the strongest. If they were given a few more years to develop, they would really be a full level 6-piece set. Before you could throw out your Q, E, 1, and 2 skills, the other party would have already thrown out their R and 3 ultimate skills. What E flash, 2 flash, R flash, big flash, healing, purification, and scamper, they would all be sent to their deaths. The 4 tyrants of Starry Sky were dumbfounded. This group of uniformed disciples not only had good equipment and strong strength, but they also had pills that could heal injuries quickly. This was too terrifying. Here's our chance. At this moment, the white-haired old man's eyes were sharp as he said, "Attack." This opportunity came when he saw the disciples fighting bravely. Jun Changxiao's lips curled up into a smile. It was obvious that he was focusing all his energy on watching the battle. It was now or never. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, the 4 hegemons of Starry Sky pierced through space and rushed toward the 4 scrolls suspended in front of Jun Changxiao at the fastest speed. The majestic power hidden in the deeper layers of space had already gathered into a big hand. According to the white-haired old man's strategy, 2 of them were in charge of pretending to attack Jun Changxiao so that he would not focus on the scrolls. The other 2 were in charge of snatching the scrolls. Because it was a sudden attack and the terrifying and domineering power was hidden in the deeper layers of space, it did not cause any earth-shaking movements. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 4 of them quickly approached, determined to get the scrolls. Jun Changxiao's eyes were still locked on the battle area. He was completely unaware that the 4 hegemons of Starry Sky had already rushed over. There's hope. The white-haired old man was overjoyed. In the next second, the smile on his face froze. This was because in the depths of the void, 2 even more powerful forces suddenly surged out, and then with an unstoppable force, they broke through it. This change was too sudden. The four of them had already rushed to the scrolls, so they did not care about the fact that their secret attack was destroyed. They all reached out to grab the scrolls. There were exactly 4 scrolls, and the 4 of them each targeted one. But, just as they were infinitely close to the scrolls, a black light suddenly flashed in front of them and gradually condensed into a physical body. Not good. Boom, 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 boom. A deafening explosion sounded like thunder, instantly suppressing the sound of the battle between the disciples of the sect of all times and their 20,000 subordinates. It also made them subconsciously stop and look in the direction of the sound. Jun Changshao, with his shiny head, stood with his hands behind his back. He said in a martial arts movie accent, sneaking around, "What kind of hero are you?" The 4 hegemons of Starry Sky had ugly expressions. At this time, their eyes were not locked on Jun Changshao, but locked on to the 2 middle-aged men in black and white who suddenly blocked in front of them. The most intolerable thing was that their outstretched hands were still grabbed by the other party, and they could not break free at all. "The 4 of you." The black and white double breaks tilted their heads and smiled. "Next, it's up to us to entertain you." Ta! The 2 of them took a step forward in unison and directly brought the 2 tyrants out of the desolate plain and into the endless darkness of space. Heads of the 4 families. Seeing their boss being carried away like a chick, the subordinates were all dumbfounded. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, there was an explosion in the sky, and waves of energy from outside the universe seeped in, causing the entire continent to tremble violently. Whoosh! After a while, the burly middle-aged man tore through the spatial barrier and fell to the ground like a cannonball. Not only did he create a very wide crater, but he also caused a sizable piece of land to split from the main body. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were stunned. Jun Changshao looked calm. When he used the sure-kill punch, if he kicked down from above, not only would the cold man die a terrible death, but the desolate continent would also be blown apart. Whoosh! At this time, another stream of light fell. Boom! After coming into close contact with the ground, a cracked piece of land separated from the main body again. The one who was knocked down was another tyrant. The 2 brothers' strength was about the same as the Galactic Navigation Monarch. The latter was being abused like a rubber ball by the black and white double breaks, so there was no need to talk about them. Whoosh! Whoosh! The white-haired elder and the other tyrant also fell from the universe and dealt a heavy blow to the desolate continent again. Whoosh! Suddenly, the gloomy man, who had been cold for a long time, was also thrown down by the black Rakshasa. When the dust settled, everything returned to normal. The 5 brothers were all neatly lying in the pit. Head, seeing their boss covered in injuries and foaming at the mouth, the subordinates' eyes were filled with shock. Elder Zhen. Jun Changshao asked, "Is the array set up?" Kakik. Zhen Dejuan stood in the distance, covered his face, and laughed strangely. "These people and their warships are all trapped inside. We can kill to our heart's content." Buzz. Buzz. Just as he finished speaking, array boundaries appeared one after another. There was a defensive array, an isolation array, and even a modified thunder array. They were linked together like an upside-down golden bowl, covering all the subordinates of the galactic 4 tyrants. Jun Changshao sat on a chair prepared in advance and leaned back. He said coldly, "Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive." Yes. Chapter 1166. The black and white double ghosts from the upper realm who had their cultivation suppressed fought against 2 each. Soon, the 4 tyrants of Starry Sky were beaten to a pulp. These were 2 bugs. Unless they were suppressed with absolute numbers, it would be very difficult for the martial artists from the mortal realm to finish them off. However, these 2 powerful beings who had just snuck into the lower realm were beaten up by the darkened Jun Changshao because they wanted to watch the show. That was, really unlucky. One of the 5 tyrants of Starry Sky was dead and 4 were injured. They were lying neatly on the ground. Their morale was definitely affected. Under normal circumstances, they would definitely scatter when the tree falls. However, Jun Changshao did not give them the chance to do so. He had already ordered Jin Dejuan to set up a formation in the abandoned realm. The process was a little difficult. This was because the disciples' battle would greatly affect the stability of the realm. Jin Dejuan was also under great pressure. He was frantically burning his brain cells to piece together a giant formation to seal off all his subordinates who did not manage to escape in time. The battle intent in Li Qingyang and the others' eyes became even stronger. Fighting with enemies from other stars allowed them to gain experience from all sides every second. It was a great opportunity to train. They could not miss it. They had to fight with all their might. Therefore, an even more tragic battle took place in the formation. The subordinates of the four tyrants of starry sky who had no way out could only brace themselves and fight in order to survive. Although there were many of them were only martial kings. When faced with the powerful disciples of the sect of all times, they could only give them a box and wave their hands before they died. In terms of high-level combat power. For example, Wuxia was at the peak or great perfection level. They had a lot of manpower. The Purple King alone could not handle them. It was fine. There was also Jun Changshao. Although this guy was watching the show, he was always paying attention to the situation. If there was an extremely unfavorable situation for the disciples, he would be the first to intervene and even kill them. The black and white double ghosts also stood outside the formation, constantly paying attention to the battle inside. They remembered the patriarch's previous instructions to not let any of the disciples die. To put it simply, the disciples of the sect of all times were fighting fiercely inside. There were 3 top powerhouses outside protecting them. This kind of combat experience was simply too blissful. The overall aspect is still a little weak. After observing the battle for a while, Jun Changshao found that other than the core disciples, many of the inner disciples were gradually losing their strength. Moreover, although the strength of the upper echelons was not bad, they were still too few in number. If they were to fight with the other planes in the slaughtering Azura field, the result would definitely not be optimistic. In terms of the development of the sect, it was already very terrifying for it to grow to such an extent in just a few years. The road has to be taken one step at a time. The system said, "Host, don't be too impatient." Jun Changshao naturally understood this principle. It was mainly because of his own strength and the opponents he encountered were even stronger, making it difficult for him to be content with the status quo. In the past, he had only come into contact with low-level experts. He had thought that creating a 1,000-man martial king army was already very terrifying. It was only when they encountered even more powerful martial emperors and cultivators from other planes that they realized that the sect of all times was just a speck of dust in the vast universe. The host has changed. The system said, "You've become more ambitious." In the past, Jun Changshao only wanted to complete the main mission as soon as possible and get rid of the soul bomb. Then, he would live a carefree life in the mountains and rivers. Now that he thought that the sect was just a speck of dust in the universe, it meant that he was not willing to be satisfied with the status quo and wanted to become stronger. Jun Changshao said, "I'm not ambitious, I just don't want to be bullied by others." "Isn't it always you who bullies others?" The system retorted. Jun Changshao said righteously, "If they didn't provoke me, would I bully them?" The system was silent. 4 hours later, the battle inside the formation stopped. The subordinates of the 4 tyrants of starry sky were all turned into boxes and scattered on the ground. Because Jun Changshao and the twin ghosts of black and white secretly protected them, the sect of all times disciples did not die. Of course. The price was not small. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others' blood-stained azure sun armor had long been shattered. Although this kind of armor from the merchant shop could provide decent defense against stronger opponents, it would not be able to hold on for long. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei, the two disciples who were known for their speed and leg strength, were paralyzed on the ground. Their legs were trembling. The inner disciples were either exhausted or covered in wounds. If not for Jun Changshao and the other two protecting them outside and resolving life-threatening situations when necessary, even if they could annihilate the four hegemons of Starry Sky, they would have suffered heavy casualties. This battle had brought them great benefits, and they also realized that they were lacking in certain areas. Loot the bags. Jun Changshao ordered. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others who could still move began to skillfully collect the spatial rings. Patriarch. Bai Luocha said, "What should we do with these four?" Jun Changshao looked at the heavily injured four hegemons of Starry Sky, and said indifferently, "Seal their cultivation and bring them back to the sect." At first, he wanted to kill them directly, but after all, they were four martial emperor-level rankers, so he brought them back to be Zhao Daodu's cellmates. They might come in handy in the future. Moreover, Jun Changshao was very curious. How did they find the falling star continent? Or was it that they were sure that he was the murderer of the handsome man from the beginning? Shua! Shua! White Rakshasa and Black Rakshasa used a move similar to the sunflower acupoint technique, sealing several important meridians in the four hegemons of Starry Sky, causing them, who were already weak, to suddenly turn into mud. Jun Changshao was not idle either. While the disciples were cleaning up the battlefield, nearly 20 space warships were kept in the spatial ring. This thing could travel through the universe, and could be used as a means of transportation for disciples in the future. The system side, in Chapter 118, the host once said that the goal is to conquer the Sea of Stars. Now it seems that we are infinitely close. Huff huff. The scorching flames burned, and the corpses turned into nothingness. Swish. The ancient warship carried the sect of all times up and down, and quickly merged into the endless universe. The desolate space was broken, and the ground was densely packed with deep pits and cracks. None of them meant that a fierce battle had occurred here. Ding! Epic level mission completed, beginning settlement. Ding! The host has successfully defeated the Starry Sky 5 hegemons, the enemies of the Starry Sky Navigation King. The epic level mission has been completed, and the completion rate is 100%. The host has received 50,000 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 1-200-007-0000. Ding! The sect contribution points have overflowed. The completion rate is only 100%. Jun Changshao frowned in dissatisfaction. As usual, because there were 2 epic level missions, even if one was completed, it would only give contribution points and no rewards. When the disciples were fighting with the enemy, I always protected them and did not let a single disciple die. The completion rate should be very high. However, what made Jun Changshao very depressed was that Shirshi's mission was completed, but Shirshi's mission was still not completed. Strange. Why is there no movement? Could it be? His eyes turned cold. The handsome man still has enemies who would come and hurt his family. No, no. Jun Changshao denied himself. If that was the case, Shirshi would not have completed the settlement. The system said, we might have misunderstood. The family might not be the disciples. Then who could it be? Jun Changshao asked. The system was silent for a while. If you want to know who it is, you have to analyze it carefully from the word family. Jun Changshao said, the Han dynasty records that a person has 6 relatives. They are father, mother, brother, younger brother, son. He stopped here. Why did you stop? I'll say it for you. The last kiss is the wife. Jun Changshao remained silent. The system said, the host and Rose Queen got married in the Spiritas continent. Even if you don't want to admit it, according to their customs, she is your wife. This is undeniable. I've already divorced her. How can she be my wife? When? The letter before leaving the Spiritas continent. A letter is a letter of divorce is a letter of divorce. How can the two be confused? Besides, the host wrote, this letter can also be treated as a letter of divorce. If she doesn't treat it as a letter of divorce, you can't do anything about it, can you? Jun Changshao was speechless. The system said seriously, the Starship King once went to the Spiritas continent. His enemies might go there. Shi Shi's mission may be to let the host protect his wife. Marriage is arranged by the heavens. The system was a good system, but Go Sheng was Go Sheng after all. He sat on the bow of the boat and began to think hard about whether he had any other relatives, such as half-brothers or half-sisters. The host's father has been farmers for generations. Do you think he has the ability to find concubines or mistresses? The mother of this body married at the age of 17. She passed away after giving birth to you. How can there be any half-brothers? The system's combo sent Jun Changshao back to reality. He didn't have any of the 6 relatives. The only one left was Rose Queen, who was husband and wife in name but not in reality. Don't be stubborn. Don't run away. The system said, after returning to the sect, quickly go to the Spiritas continent. It's best if there's no danger, but if there is, quickly save them. After all, this is related to an epic mission. Whoosh, the ancient warship entered the spatial barrier of the Starfall continent and floated in the main hall of the sect of all times. Bring these 4 to the Earth prison and keep them under strict guard, Jun Chang said with a smile. Yes. The disciples dragged the 4 paralyzed people away. They passed by the heaven prison, which attracted Zhao Daodu's attention. He shouted, brother, come and see. More prisoners are here. Dai Lu, sigh. Zhao Daodu sat back on the wooden bed and crossed his legs. Why didn't Jun Patriarch assign the prisoners to our prison? Senior brother, I heard that the 4 people who just came in are comparable to martial emperors. Of course. In our sect of all times, other than the 2 weaklings in the heaven prison, we never take in low-level martial artists. The disciples' conversation came from outside the prison. Zhao Daodu and Dai Lu's eyes widened. The 4 people who were dragged in just now, were comparable to martial emperors. Whoosh! Zhao Daodu suddenly stood up and put his hands behind his back. He looked up at the prison's iron window and said proudly, those who aren't powerful are not worthy to be my prisoners. Chapter 1167. Patriarch. In the main hall, Li Qingyang reported in detail the various resources in the spatial rings of the 4 hegemons of starry sky and said weakly, are you listening? Jun Changshao, who was sitting at the head of the table, seemed to be thinking. Jun Changshao came back to his senses and said, what did you say? Li Qingyang was speechless. He had reported to the Patriarch many times, and it was rare to see him so absent-minded. In desperation, he could only report the various resources again. Jun Changshao listened and said, refine the herbs and ores into pills and equipment. Give the spirit stones to old Yuan and let him distribute them. Yes. Li Qingyang received the order and left. The system said, aren't you going to the Soul Race continent to save your wife? Jun Changshao said, 11th Shi's mission is complete, the enemy of the Starry Sky Navigator King is gone, how could she be in trouble? Maybe someone coveting the throne is causing trouble again. Impossible, I have arranged for the 3 purified palace masters to be in the Soul Race continent. With them there, who would dare to cause trouble? Since the epic mission has a mission to protect loved ones, something will happen sooner or later. Would the host die if he went? All right. Jun Changshao compromised. That day, he took Cui Hua to Aeon City, and then went to the Soul Race continent through the previous passage. Because the space-time tunnel could be mended and opened at any time, coming to this plane was as easy as strolling in the back garden. It had been almost a few months since Jun Changshao last left, and the space that was torn by the fight with the handsome man was gradually healing. Standing at the entrance of the tunnel, his spiritual sense shrouded a large city in the distance. Looking at the soul race martial artists who were living as usual, he spread his hands and said, "No one attacked at all. That's strange." The system was puzzled. Jun Changshao did not go to Empress City. After confirming that the Soul Race continent was safe, he returned to the Falling Star continent. "Since you're here, why don't you go take a look? I haven't dealt with the 4 hegemons of Starry Sky yet. Unlike you, who is hiding in a corner, not eating, not drinking, not peeing, and not doing anything." If Jun Changshao continued walking towards the center of the Spiritas continent, he would be able to see the floating gate that led to the planar battlefield. Of course, although not going to Empress City would be a form of avoidance, the 4 tyrants of the Starry Sky still had to quickly ask them how they had found the Starfall continent, and how they had determined that he was the murderer. Searching for someone on a continent was like searching for a needle in a haystack. He didn't believe that these people could find him in the universe just by feeling. Having been in the world of martial arts for so long, Jun Changshao could roughly guess that they might have some kind of method, such as tools or martial skills. If he could get his hands on them, they would definitely be useful in the future. Earth Cell. The bald man, one of the 6 generals of the Starry Sky Navigation King, shrank into a corner in fear. He repeatedly muttered in his heart, "Master's enemy, why is he here?" Back then, he had followed the handsome man to the north and south and had been intercepted by the 5 tyrants of the Star Ocean in the universe. Later, he had been brutally beaten up. In order to survive, his master had told them a shocking secret that he had obtained. Only then did he survive. He had thought that they would never meet again in this life, but in the end, they were locked in the same cell. Was the world too small, or was the universe too small? "Boss." A subordinate came over and whispered, "The 4 tyrants of the Starry Sky have been beaten up badly. They are lying on the ground like mud." The fear in the bald man's eyes intensified. The 4 of them were here without a doubt because they had been captured by Jun Changshao. Their heavy injuries were definitely related to him. Master is in big trouble. The bald man thought. The 4 tyrants of the Starry Sky had been beaten up badly. He didn't think that his master could escape unscathed from Jun Changshao. Creak. Suddenly, the cell door opened. Xiao Zui was the first to walk over and set the chair down. Jun Changshao sat down elegantly and habitually clasped his fingers together. He said, "The 4 of you, I killed the Starry Sky Navigation King in the desolate plain. How did you know? And how did you find the Starry Sky continent?" These words were like a bolt from the blue. The bald man and his subordinates were all stunned. Master was killed by him. The bald man was stunned for a while. A bitter smile appeared on his face. To be able to beat the 4 tyrants of the Starry Sky to such an extent, it seemed normal for his master to die in his hands. The bald man should be glad that he was locked in a cell. Otherwise, he would end up like the handsome man and the other 5 generals. Kid, the burly middle-aged man said weakly, "We are from the Starry Sky Fortress. If you know what's good for you, let us go quickly." Starry Sky Fortress. Jun Changshao was confused. However, when he saw the bald man huddled in the corner, he asked, "Have you heard of it?" Heard of it. Speak." The bald man who was trained by Arya was very obedient. He hurriedly told him everything he knew. In the starry sky of the mortal universe, there was an extremely gloomy area. There was no plane inside, only a huge floating castle. Hence, it was called the Starry Sky Fortress. The master of the fortress called himself the Fortress Master. Warriors from other planes could enter, but the prerequisite was that they had to pay enough resources. As long as they obtained an identity inside, they would enjoy different levels of protection. The identities in the fortress were categorized into first, second, and third class. The lowest third-class identity only had the right to enter. The second-class identity had the right to reside. The highest first-class identity was similar to a noble. Not only did they have the right to reside, they could also choose slaves. Tsk tisk. Jun Chang laughed and said, "It's quite futile." The bald man said again, "As long as you obtain a second-class identity in the Starry Sky Fortress, not only can you live there permanently, you will also receive the protection of the fortress." If that's the case. Jun Changshao looked at the four tyrants of the Starry Sky lying on the ground and said, "You have obtained a second-class identity in the Starry Sky Fortress?" "Yes, that's right." The burly middle-aged man's tone was a little arrogant. Obviously, he was very proud of his second-class identity. Jun Changshao said, "Is the Starry Sky Fortress very powerful?" "Very powerful." The bald man said solemnly, "My master once said that the fortress master's strength is extremely terrifying. He also has connections with many large planes, especially the fortress army that he has cultivated. It is said that a small team of 100 people can easily destroy a plane." "That powerful?" Jun Changshao was flabbergasted. To be honest, if the 5 tyrants of the Starry Sky and their subordinates attacked the Starry Sky continent with the 9 great martial emperors, they would have to pay a price even if they could destroy it. This so-called fortress army could easily destroy a plane by sending out a 100-man team. Could it be that they were all martial emperors? The bald man said, "I heard that there is a very large underground black market in the Starry Sky Fortress that sells many strange treasures. Every year, it attracts many plain warriors to buy them." Interesting. Jun Changshao was interested in the Starry Sky Fortress. It was mainly because of the strange treasures. "Little kid." The burly middle-aged man said weakly, "We have second-class identities and are fully protected by the Starry Sky Fortress. If they know, they will not let you off easily. They might even implicate your family and the entire plane." Jun Changxiao's eyes turned cold when he heard that. He had been thinking about Shi the 12th's mission. Now that he knew that someone would help him when he was in danger and implicate his family and the plane, could it be related to that? Whoosh, Pucci. The green dragon crescent blade flashed with green light. Hot blood splattered on the cell wall. As for the burly middle-aged man, his head was separated from his body. Jun Changxiao's gaze was cold as he said, "This seat hates being threatened the most, especially by those who threaten my family." Sigh. The system said helplessly, "Isn't it good to be alive? Why do you have to seek death?" The dead burly middle-aged man would never have dreamed that he would be killed in exchange for his harsh words just to let this guy know that he had the support of the Starry Sky Fortress. What a pity. He was a martial emperor. Fourth brother. The white-haired old man and the other two said sorrowfully. Whoosh! 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 The green dragon crescent blade, True Yang sword, and Jade Dragon asks the Heaven's sword stabbed into their necks. Jun Changshao said coldly, "I don't care if you are protected by the Starry Sky Fortress or Universe Emperor Frisia. Hurry up and answer my question." The burly middle-aged man had angered him. At this time, if the 3 of them did not cooperate, he could still kill them all. The ruthless Jun Changshao did not care that the other party was a martial emperor. He did not care that subduing them could provide a powerful force for the sect. I will speak. The white-haired old man chose to compromise. Strictly speaking, if not for the remnant book, they did not have any enmity with Jun Changshao. Now that they were captured, why would they have to be unyielding? Wouldn't it be better to give in exchange for a chance to live? The white-haired old man explained how he was sure that Jun Changshao was the culprit and how he found the falling star continent. Actually, there was no mystery. It was all because of the time reversal technique. Secret book. Jun Changshao said indifferently, "Take it out." The white-haired old man thought for a while and took out something that looked like a jelly bean. This item was also a spatial storage device, but it was of a higher level than a spatial ring. Because there was some kind of isolation force on the surface, it would not be easily discovered if placed in a pocket. You are still hiding something. Jun Changshao took it and pinched it with 2 fingers. His spiritual sense entered it and found that there was a soul imprint blocking it. He said indifferently, "Do you want to open it yourself, or do you want me to do it?" This kind of spatial item cannot be opened as long as the soul imprint is integrated into it, unless, the white-haired old man stopped talking because a caterpillar-like creature appeared beside Jun Changshao. He stared in shock and said, "Time. Time worm." Whoosh! The summoned Chuihua stuck to the jelly-like object. It first sniffed with its nose and then divided a force into it to eat the soul imprint blocking its way. Puff! The white-haired old man spat out a mouthful of blood. The soul imprint in the storage device was placed by him. Once it was forcefully destroyed by an external force, it would naturally bring about a huge backlash. The other 2 tyrants lay on the ground and looked at the little worm with disbelief. This kind of time worm that could open up deep space was an extremely rare commodity even in the Starry Sky Fortress black market. It actually existed in a low-level plane. Master. Suihua retracted its power and said, "The imprint inside has been broken. You have worked hard." Jun Changshao rubbed its little head with his fingers. He was about to put it into the spatial ring, but Suihua said first, "Master, it is too boring in there." "That's true." Jun Changshao summoned the pillar and said, "You guys stay outside for now." Oh my god! This guy actually has a time worm. Seeing the pillar appear, the 3 tyrants' eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Chapter 1168. Inside the study room. Jun Changshao took out a yellowed secret manual and muttered, "Is the time reversal technique really that magical?" This was a space-type martial technique. After learning it, one could reverse time and space at a fixed location, replaying the scenes that had happened in the past. How much time could be reversed? That would depend on the user's comprehension and cultivation level. For example, the white-haired old man could only reverse time to 10 years ago after hundreds of years, and the range of coverage was only a few meters. Jun Changshao casually flipped through 2 pages and found that the chant was rather complicated. With his talent, it would probably take some time to learn it. Sigh. He shook his head and took out the top-grade Talisman of Insight. Cultivating step by step was not his style. If he could take the shortcut, he would definitely take it. Jun Changshao never cared about others calling him a cheat dog, nor did he care about being called a fart without the system. Because I am me, a different kind of firework. However, just as he was about to crush it, his mind was in a daze. Jun Changshao thought of Rose Queen, because she was the one who gave him the high-level crystal nucleus to refine the top-grade Talisman of Insight. The system said, "Feelings are nurtured little by little in the small details." Scram. Pa. After crushing the Talisman of Insight, the powerful martial arts knowledge and comprehension instantly exploded his sea of consciousness. Jun Changshao began to meditate and learn the time reversal technique, but he would occasionally be distracted and think of the woman who was bending over the table and correcting the memorials. TSK. The system was surprised. After this guy used the Talisman of Insight, his Wuxian greatly increased, and his EQ seemed to have increased as well. Whether it was IQ, Wuxian, or EQ, they were all related to the brain. The Talisman of Insight's effect was precisely to develop the brain. Being distracted during cultivation was a big taboo. But Jun Changshao had been cultivating while being distracted, and he had managed to learn the time reversal technique. This was really enviable. Taking advantage of the remaining time the Talisman of Insight still had, he took out the Tianjun soul refining technique and began to cultivate seriously. 2 hours later, Jun Changshao walked out of the study room. Whether it was in terms of temperament or aura, there seemed to be a subtle change. The system said, "The host has already comprehended the Tianjun soul refining technique. As long as you circulate it every day, your soul and spiritual sense will continue to strengthen." Will you be able to stay conscious if you use the power of the stone statues? Jun Changshao asked. The system pondered for a moment and said, it depends on the strength of the host's soul. Jun Changshao did not say anything. Ta! He stopped at the martial arts practice field of the main hall and activated the time reversal technique. He had already learned this mystical martial technique. Now, he needed to test how much time he could reverse and how far he could cover. Hoo! The moment Jun Changshao closed his eyes, he activated the time reversal technique. An attribute similar to the power of space gradually diffused out and then enveloped the entire training field. Buzz. Whing. Buzz. Space began to tremble, and images began to appear in his sea of consciousness like a movie being played in reverse. The training field of the sect of all times had been repaired by Li Qingyang several times. The original mud floor was changed to stone bricks, and then the area gradually expanded to its current size. Jun Changshao, who had used the time reversal technique, reversed the order. From glory to desolation, he returned to the scene when he first transmigrated a few years ago. He saw himself sitting on the stairs at the edge of the training field, holding a bowl of noodles and eating while crying. That was the helplessness and pain of having just transmigrated and facing the unfamiliar world and the sect. This scene, which was like watching a replay, made Jun Changshao feel inexplicably emotional. At that time, he had to go to Aunt Wang's house in Qingyang village to eat. Now that he had reached the peak of the sword and martial saints, it really felt like a dream. Jun Changshao could see himself in the most difficult situation in the past, which meant that with the help of the insight talisman, he already had a good understanding of the time reversal technique. At least he could see what happened a few years ago. I can reverse it again. Hoo! The power of space continued to fluctuate, and scenes of the past appeared in his sea of consciousness again. After a while, he saw two men in their 30s appear in the area of the training field, each carrying a bag. They waved in the direction of the main hall and said, "Junior brother Jun, this sect is in your hands. Don't let down the spirit of the sect master in heaven. Damn it. Two bastards." The two people who appeared in the scene were the eldest senior brother and second senior brother who had left after the farewell meal with Jun Changshao. If they were still in the sect now, Lu Qianshan and Li Qingyang would have to call them martial uncle. Unfortunately, the two of them left and never came back. Jun Changshao hadn't gone to find the two senior brothers since he transmigrated, because in his opinion, everyone had their own ambitions. Since they had left, so be it. Whoosh! The scene in front of him changed again. He clearly felt that the training field that had turned into mud had turned from dilapidated to brand new. His small body appeared again and again, holding a big broom to sweep the fallen leaves on the ground. Go Sheng! Suddenly, a deep voice came from the direction of the main hall, "Clean it up." This voice, Jun Changshao's mood fluctuated slightly, and he said, "Sect Master Wang." He didn't expect that by using the time reversal technique, he would return to the time when the first sect master was still alive and could even hear him speak. With such a heroic voice, it was hard to imagine that he would go to a brothel and choose to break out of prison. The scene in the past continued to play back. After an unknown period of time, Jun Changshao's expression suddenly froze. He saw himself who was only 4 or 5 years old. He saw Sect Master Wang put one hand on his head and said with a smile, "Little guy, your bones are exquisite. You are really a one-in-a-million martial arts genius. From today onwards, you will be the third disciple of my sect." Jun Changshao didn't obtain these memories when he transmigrated. It was probably too long ago that the original owner himself didn't remember. What shocked him wasn't that the first sect master Wang finally appeared in the scene, but that there was a person standing next to him when he accepted him. This person was wearing a blue robe and looked to be in his 30s. However, his hair was white and there was a wine gourd hanging on his waist. The county chief of Qingyang County. Yun He. Jun Changshao said in surprise, why is he here? Does he know the sect master? Sect Master Wang. The Yunhe in the image smiled and said, I'll leave this child to you. Don't worry, I'll nurture him into a talent. Sect Master Wang cupped his hands and said. What do you mean? Jun Changshao frowned and said, could it be that my joining the Iron Bones sect has something to do with County Chief Yun? When he continued to turn back time to look at the past, he realized that he couldn't go back. The system's voice sounded in his ear, with the host's current understanding of the time reversal technique, you can only go back to 20 years ago. Whoosh! The scene in front of him disappeared. Jun Changshao seemed to have returned to reality from the illusion. Then, he fell into deep thought. When he joined the Iron Bones sect at a young age, County Chief Yun was actually in the sect and seemed to know Sect Master Wang. No. It didn't make sense. If Sect Master Wang knew County Chief Yun, why would he be captured? Moreover, from the conversation, the original owner was sent here by him when he was young, which meant that he should know me. But why did I feel like a stranger when I first met him? Originally, he just wanted to test the time reversal technique, but when he saw the scene from 20 years ago, Jun Changshao suddenly felt confused. Maybe, the system said solemnly, the host's real identity is actually a scion. Later, the planet was destroyed by Frisia. A top expert named Yunhe risked his life to bring you to the falling star continent and handed you to Sect Master Wang, who had been hiding here for decades, to teach you martial arts. Jun Changshao rolled his eyes and said, then my name should be Kakarot. Chapter 1169. The time reversal technique allowed Jun Changshao to see the scene 20 years ago when he joined the Iron Bones sect. But why was Yunhe here? I can't figure it out. Jun Changshao, who was sitting in a pavilion in the courtyard, held his head and said, I can't figure it out. Don't think about it if you can't figure it out. The system said, the truth will slowly surface in time. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, if it's as you think, I might be Kakarot, sent to the falling star continent by someone. Maybe I have relatives in this world, or maybe it's related to Shur the 12th's mission. I still think the mission is related to your wife. Jun Changshao ignored it and once again fell into deep thought in his most handsome posture. Patriarch. At this moment, Yuan Gongzi walked in. He first reported the sect's affairs, then said, we can exchange the resources we obtained earlier for high-grade spirit stones in the Big Plains. The space rings of the 5 hegemons and their subordinates were rich in resources, but there were many things that the sect of all times could not use. That makes sense. Jun Changshao agreed. The sect was currently lacking spirit stones to achieve the overall improvement of the disciples. The idea of exchanging for spirit stones in the Big Plains was very good. About this, Jun Changshao said, I'll leave it to you. Yuan Gongzi said with a bitter face, Patriarch, our stronghold in the battlefield has been sealed. We can't go out at all. It's been sealed. Jun Changshao said in surprise, I'll go take a look. That day, he entered the plain battlefield through the portal, then stood on the majestic floating mountain. There were no changes, but Jun Changshao could clearly feel that the surrounding light that was similar to a defensive barrier was more substantial than before. It felt like the door was welded shut so that no one could jump out of the car. Swoosh! He flew over. Just as he touched the barrier, he was bounced back. Jun Changshao frowned and said, this is a bit too much. They spent so much effort to build a super large-scale stronghold, but the road to the outside world was sealed. No one could accept this. Dear participants. The female system's voice, which he had not heard for a long time, rang in his ears. Because you have been judged to have violated the rules of the upper realm, not only have you been stripped of your right to enter the falling star continent, but your settlement has also been permanently sealed. Jun Changshao looked up at the sky and said angrily, I came in through my own abilities and fought my way up. How can I be imprisoned just because of a single crime? Do you still have any respect for the law? If he was caught cheating, he would admit defeat. However, during the construction of the stronghold, he had been punished for violating the rules. In the end, he was accused of maliciously exploiting a bug to gain benefits and his account was banned. This was too much. Shua. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said angrily, Cui Hua, bite it open. Yes, master. Cui Hua, who was summoned, immediately transformed into her original form. She opened her teeth that specialized in crushing spatial barriers, and with a crack, she tore a large hole in the barrier. Swish! Jun Changshao flew out with a smile on his face. You can punish me for using a bug that I once used, but how can you punish me for using other bugs? Go Sheng, who had the space-time worm, was invincible. Even without a portal, he could immediately drill a hole from the falling star continent. Outside the stronghold of the Lingyuan continent. Kuji Nan cupped his hands and said, long time no see. Jun Patriarch's cultivation has improved a lot. Jun Changshao sat down and joked, we're all old friends. Can we not be so polite in the future? Ha ha ha. Kuji Nan chuckled and said, could it be that Sect Master Jun has come here to sell more pills? He had done business with Jun Changshao before and bought a lot of healing pills with spirit stones. He sold them in his own plane and made a lot of money. I'm not selling pills. Jun Changshao waved his hand and took out a few things, saying, I'm selling some ores and herbs. Oh. Kuji Nan was a little disappointed. However, after looking at the things carefully, he said in surprise, Jun Patriarch, the quality of these ores and herbs is not low. I'm afraid only a high-level plane can nurture them. The plane was strong. The resources were strong. The unchanging rules. For the falling star continent, the ores and spirit stones it contained were simply trash compared to the high-level Nine Heavens continent. The ores and herbs Jun Changshao took out came from the 5 hegemons of the Starry Sky and the Starry Sky Navigation King. Most of them were robbed from other high-level planes, so the level was very high. Old Ku. I have a lot of these ores and herbs. If you need them, you can exchange them with spirit stones. Jun Changshao wanted to keep them. Maybe they would be useful in the future, but his disciples also needed to be strengthened. It was better to exchange a part of them for spirit stones so that they could improve their cultivation in the shortest time possible. Kuji Nan said, with the strength of the Lingyuan continent, I'm afraid it's difficult to control such high-level ores and herbs. Jun Patriarch, if you want to exchange, you can go to the first-tier plane. These were good things, but they also needed to be developed. The Lingyuan continent was stronger than the falling star continent, but not by much. If he used resources from a higher plane, even if he refined equipment and pills, it would be difficult to perfectly exert the effects. Okay. Jun Changshao got up and said, then I'll take my leave first. He did not waste any time and directly flew toward the Nine Heavens continent stronghold. Strange. Looking at Go Sheng's departing figure, Kuji Nan was puzzled. Why did Jun Patriarch cover his head with a black robe? City Lord. In the hall, a subordinate reported, the Patriarch of the Sect of all times has come to visit. Mo Shangsheng and the elders who were discussing the matter widened their eyes. Wasn't the falling star continent stronghold sealed by the upper realm? Its qualification was also replaced by the Soul continent. Why did that guy come here again? Mo Shangsheng sighed. He can still enter the plain battlefield at will after being stripped of his qualification. It's good to have someone up there. Swoosh. Without the slightest delay, he immediately flew out and cupped his hands with a smile. Jun Patriarch is here to visit. Please forgive me for not coming out to meet you. Kuji Nan was making money, and so was Mo Shangsheng. He even spent more spirit stones on healing pills than the other party, and earned more spirit stones than the other party. Therefore, Jun Changshao was a god of wealth in his eyes, and he could roughly guess that the other party was here to discuss business. As expected. After hearing Jun Changxiao's intention, Mo Shangxing's eyes lit up. Jun is not here to sell pills this time, but some ores and medicinal herbs of decent quality. Ores and medicinal herbs. Mo Shangxing's interest was greatly reduced. There were countless ores and medicinal herbs in the Nine Heavens continent. He did not care for them. However, since they were here to trade, they might not be simple. Therefore, Mo Shangxing cupped his hands and said, "Jun Patriarch, please take them out and let me take a look." Swoosh! Swoosh! Jun Changxiao took out a few of the most representative ores and medicinal herbs. Mo Shangxing examined them one by one, and exclaimed, "Jun Patriarch, these ores and medicinal herbs of yours are of extremely high quality. Do you need them?" "Yes. I currently have a few thousand caddies of ores and medicinal herbs here. We're all old acquaintances. You can name the price." Mo Shangxing was shocked. Where did he get so many high-quality ores and medicinal herbs? Could it be that the people from the upper realm secretly sent them here? After some consideration, Mo Shangxing bought all of Jun Changxiao's ores and medicinal herbs at the price of 1,000,000 six-pointed star stones. "I look forward to working with you. I look forward to working with you." Smiles appeared on both of their faces. City Lord Mo Jun Changxiao asked, "Do the other first-tier planes need these ores and medicinal herbs?" "They should," Mo Shangxing said. Jun Changxiao thought for a moment, and said, "I can go and talk business with them." Mo Shangxing replied, "It's best if Sect Master Jun doesn't go there during this period of time." "Why?" "They are currently working together to attack the plane that replaced your Starfall continent's position." Jun Changxiao suddenly remembered that his own plane was judged to have violated the rules, and another plane replaced it. He smiled and said, "City Lord Mo, which plane is the unlucky plane that replaced our falling star continent?" "The Spiritas." Ga. The smile on Go Sheng's face froze. Mo Shangxing didn't notice the change in his expression. He said, "This Spiritas is a bit strong. They've made countless enemies in just a few months on the planar battlefield. Just now, we received news that Rose Empress led her subordinates to fight for opportunities, but they were trapped in Heartbreak Valley by experts from various planes. Wait. Where's Jun Patriarch?" Jun Changxiao, who was standing in front of him, was nowhere to be seen. Only a cold murderous intent was left behind. Mo Shangxing was a wily old fox. He released his spiritual thoughts and saw that guy flying toward Heartbreak Valley. His eyes flashed with a faint murderous intent. He seemed to have understood something and said in surprise, "Is the Spiritas related to the falling star continent?" Chapter 1170. Some time ago, streams of light shot into the sky from the dimensional battlefield, indicating the birth of a fortuitous opportunity. It attracted cultivators from various dimensions. However, Rose Empress was faster than them. She occupied the best location for the fortuitous opportunity and ordered her subordinates to seal it. Anyone who trespassed would be killed without mercy. This method was the same as when Jun Changxiao discovered a mine in the falling star continent and ordered his disciples to seal off the valley. Natural treasures belonged to those who were capable. Rose Empress' method of sealing off the fortuitous opportunity and preventing others from entering was too domineering, so it immediately angered the major dimensions. The alliance led by the Red Sea continent also immediately dispatched cultivators after learning about this. It should have been a plot where everyone fought for the treasure, but it suddenly became a plot where everyone worked together to target the Soul Race continent. Jun Changxiao killed tens of thousands of people because of a fortuitous opportunity, leaving behind a crazy legend. Rose Empress was strong, but she had never done such a fierce thing, so everyone was just a little afraid. They didn't believe that they couldn't deal with her if they worked together. Swish! 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 Outside the emotion-disturbed valley, streams of light flew over quickly. The number of powerful cultivators gathered in this area gradually increased, and the number of people was about to break through 100,000. Only tens of thousands of people came to fight for the fortuitous opportunity. The rest were all from the Red Sea continent and the other allied dimensions. They seemed to realize that this was an excellent opportunity, so they sent out their absolute strength, planning to destroy the Soul Race continent in one fell swoop. Of course. This time, the main force of the Soul Race continent still had to rely on the vast continent and the Saros continent because the two first-tier dimensions sent out 6 Heaven-class cultivators and 100 Earth-class cultivators. Including the Heaven-class and Heaven-class cultivators, there were about 50,000 of them in total. Their combat power was stronger than the Starry Sky 5 tyrants. After all, the lowest cultivation level here was Wu Huan. More and more cultivators from various dimensions gathered, and the atmosphere became more and more oppressive. It wasn't hard to imagine. If they really fought, it would definitely be exciting. Empress. In the emotion-disturbed valley, in the area where the array was circulating, a Soul Race cultivator frowned and said, "Let's leave quickly." If it was just a weak dimension, the Soul Race continent might be able to fight back. However, there were so many of them, and the 6 leaders were all Heaven-class cultivators. It was too troublesome. The Rose Queen, who was wearing green armor that accentuated her perfect figure, sat on her throne. She supported her face with one hand and said in a lazy tone, "They can't beat me, so they work together. These planes are really weak." Humph! Hong Yao flew over from afar and stood outside the heavy defense. He said coldly, "Rose Queen, you've angered everyone. If you don't want to die a horrible death, you'd better surrender now." Swish! A beam of light shot out from the valley. Not good. Hong Yao turned pale with fright. Boom! At this moment, the Heaven-class powerhouse from the boundless continent appeared in front of her. He shattered the light with a powerful fist and said coldly, "Girl, your killing intent is too strong." Rose Queen's cherry lips curled into a smile. Same here. She had come to the planar battlefield with a relatively strong performance, but if she had been at a disadvantage, the enemy would definitely have wanted to kill her more than she did. For example, the Scarlet Sea continent. The Spiritas continent had just arrived at the battlefield and could not wait to bully them. If Rose Queen hadn't retaliated at that time, then the other party would have been even crueler than her. Why should I be bullied when I'm weak? Why should I be called murderous when I'm strong? Everything I do is my fault, and everything you do is right. I, Rose of Flowers, am so strong today because of my own abilities. You came to bully me and were bullied by me, so you have to kneel on the ground and admit it. In a world where the strong preyed on the weak, there were not so many messy reasons. Rose Queen, who had been fighting for thousands of years, understood the rules of the planar battlefield very well. So, after entering, she had always believed that those who bullied her would be returned 100-fold. As for these sanctimonious major planes, they seemed to be working together to uphold justice, but in fact, they were just suppressing others. As for the dirty things they did in private, they might not be as open and aboveboard as they were. Needless to say, Rose Queen's alliance with the various planes was quite similar to the alliance between the Demon Emperor and the righteous sects 10,000 years ago. The Demon Emperor broke the balance and threatened the righteous sect's interests, so he was destroyed. Rose Queen was now as strong as the Demon Emperor. The planes stationed on the battlefield all year round would naturally not let her go easily. If not for Jun Changshao killing tens of thousands of people with his sword and shocking everyone with his absolute strength, he and his disciples would also be targeted on the planar battlefield. In a world where martial arts were respected, there was never any justice or reason. Legends. They could only be fought with fists. Of course, there was also Jun Changshao, who was given a level 12 VIP 1 by charging money. Senior He. Hong Yao, who was protected, cupped his hands and said, "Don't talk nonsense with this woman. Why don't we just make a move?" He was worried that the treasure would appear at any time. If Rose Queen snatched it and fled without a fight, they would miss the opportunity for nothing. Senior, he thought for a while and said indifferently, fellow cultivators, please help me break the barrier. Okay. The other 5 heaven-class experts instantly reached a tacit agreement. Swoosh! The red lotus demonic moon blade appeared out of thin air. Rose Queen, who was sitting on the throne, straightened her back. Her lazy eyes turned cold and sharp as she said, anyone who dares to take half a step into the mine will have to pay a terrible price. These words were very familiar. That's right. After monopolizing the Spirit Stone mine on the Falling Star continent, Jun Changshao had set it in front of the major sections. Bright Light Sacred Sect's Elder Yi did not believe him. In the end, he was shot down by Xiao Ziji with a field cannon. Sure enough, if they were not of the same family, they would not enter the same house. However, at that time, Jun Changshao was only facing a second-rate Sect's elder and a group of third-rate and fourth-rate sections. The experts Rose Queen was facing now were at least 100 times stronger than him. Go! Senior, he shouted coldly. He and his companions would not be intimidated by a single sentence. So, they immediately gathered a powerful force and blasted the barrier set up. The heaven-class experts from the first echelon were all at Wu Xing's great perfection level in terms of strength. Now that the 6 of them were attacking together, the formation could be said to be earth-shattering. Some of the spectating cultivators shook their heads. Although the Soul Race continent was strong, the 2 first echelon planes had sent people over. It was obvious that they were determined to win. After this battle, the former should be removed from the plane. Boom! 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 6 violent forces pressed down from all directions, and the seemingly solid barrier immediately trembled violently. Rose Queen's expression changed slightly. The heaven-class experts from the first echelon were not to be underestimated. Boom! Boom! At this moment, the 6 forces that seemed to fill the sky pressed down crazily again. The barrier, which was already difficult to withstand, finally showed a large area shattering. Swish! Rose Queen tapped her toes and flew out with rose petals in the sky. The red lotus demonic moon blade behind her flickered with a scorching light. Go! The 6 experts from the vast continent and Saros continent rushed over. Rose Queen was the Soul Race's strongest force. As long as this woman was restrained, the Soul Race cultivators could be easily killed by others. Whoosh! 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 Many forces exploded from above and below. The space could not withstand it and instantly collapsed. In the distance, all the cultivators widened their eyes. 7 heaven-class experts were about to fight. The scene would definitely be dazzling. However, just as everyone was looking forward to it, a black light suddenly burst out from the distance and then suddenly stood in the area where the forces were about to collide. Boom! 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 Fist marks spread, and energy exploded. Whoosh! 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 The wind howled wantonly as if the space was wailing. Rose Queen, who was about to press forward, was stunned because the back of the black-clothed figure blocking the attack was very familiar. Ugly woman. Jun Changshao, who had rushed over in time, said with a sullen face, 1 against 6. Do you want to die? It's him. It's really him. Rose Queen's face lit up with joy, and the Empress's aura that had erupted earlier was immediately restrained. Go down. Jun Changshao still had a straight face as he said, leave this to me. Oh. Rose Queen put away the red lotus demonic moon blade and then landed in the defensive barrier. Looking at the extraordinarily handsome back, she smiled foolishly and said, my husband is so handsome in this black robe. Whoosh! 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 Suddenly, a strong wind blew, and the back of Jun Changshao's shiny head appeared. Chapter 1171. Before the Rose Queen was seriously injured and in imminent danger, Jun Changshao had already rushed over and neutralized all the 7 forces coming from above and below. After breaking through the sword and martial saints, he was now so strong that, at that moment, Jun Changshao quietly put the Xianyuan divine armor in his black robe into his space ring. Alright. So that's what it was. Here came the problem. Why was Jun Changshao wearing a black robe and deliberately covering his head? The reason was simple. After he used the one-kill punch, he lost all his black hair. What he couldn't stand the most was that after he returned to the faction, he sprayed hair growth medicine, but it didn't have any effect at all. The system's jinx was right. The side effects of the one-kill punch were useless even with the magically modified hair growth medicine. Because of this, Go Xing cursed the system in his heart for a long time. It couldn't take it anymore and could only force itself to shut down for a long time. As a respected patriarch of the falling star continent and a crazy killing god in the dimensional battlefield, it would be embarrassing for him to go out with his head bare. That was why he could only wear the black robe rewarded by the supreme product. From this, it could be seen that Jun Changshao still cared about his reputation. If it was the Purple King, he wouldn't be embarrassed even if he faced all the heroes in the world naked, let alone his head. However, after appearing in an extremely pretentious manner and breaking through the various powers, a strong wind blew away the black robe, and a shiny head was instantly revealed. The Rose Queen, who was already infatuated with the black robe, saw Go Xing's smooth head, and her beautiful eyes shone. She almost couldn't help but fly over and rub it. He knows that I like it. Is that why he shaved his head bald? He obviously cares about me, but he still acts like he doesn't care about me. He really doesn't mean what he says. The Rose Queen, who was imagining things, muttered shyly to herself. She looked at Jun Changshao with eyes full of love that only a wife would have. Don't flatter yourself. Jun Changshao could no longer suppress his irritation. He turned around and roared, I'm not bald to cater to you. Bald brat. Hovering in midair, Senior, he asked, are you a martial practitioner of the Soul Race continent? To be able to break through the combined power of the 6 of them in an instant, the strength of this bald guy at such a young age should not be underestimated. Shua. Jun Changshao turned around and asked with bloodshot eyes, what did you call me? This gaze was extremely frightening, causing Senior He and the other experts to involuntarily shiver. Cold shivers. This was too much. Hong Yao, who was standing not far away, was suspended in the air. His hands and legs were trembling violently, and the muscles on his face were twitching as if they were cramping. Palace Master Hong, what happened to you? A heaven-class expert from Saros continent asked. He. Hong Yao stuttered for a long time before he finally managed to squeeze out the rest of the sentence, it's Jun Changshao. Jun Changshao. The heaven-class experts frowned slightly. Suddenly, their expressions changed in unison as they cried out involuntarily, the patriarch of the sect of all times with 20,000 slayings, Jun Changshao. That's right, after Hong Yao finished speaking, his expression and mentality completely collapsed. Because even a fool could tell that Jun Changshao had suddenly killed his way here and stood in front of Rose Queen to protect her. The 2 of them must be related, the 2 of them must have something going on. If it were anyone else, no matter how strong their backer was, Hong Yao would not show it even if he was afraid. Only facing Jun Changshao, he almost collapsed to the ground. This is brother. This is master. This is father. My Scarlet Sea continent cannot afford to offend him. Recalling that he was in charge of organizing and leading this alliance, Hong Yao's blood boiled and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Jun Changshao did not release too much pressure, nor did he deliberately look at him. Just standing behind Rose Queen was enough to scare him into vomiting blood. The deterrence was truly tyrannical. Of course. Lingyan continent, Xingxian continent, and the other big shots of the alliance were also boiling and almost spitting out blood. Palace Master Hong. Jun Changshao coldly glanced at the 6 heaven-class experts and said in a deep voice, "What grave mistake did the Soul Clan commit that all of you have to work together to deal with it? Hong Yao, why the fuck am I not drinking tea and taking a bath in the stronghold? Why the fuck am I here? So fragrant." In the 9 Heavens Continent stronghold, Mo Shangsheng was happily drinking tea. "Husband," Rose Queen said, "my Soul Clan replaced a bastard plane that violated the rules and came to the battlefield, and they fought to bully us. After being beaten away by me, they were not convinced and joined forces." Jun Changshao was speechless. "The bastard plane you're talking about is my falling star continent." Hong Yao and the others gradually opened their mouths. Husband. This Rose Queen is Jun Changshao's wife. If there was a hole in the ground now, Hong Yao would definitely crawl into it and then bury himself, pretending that he never appeared and never existed. It was strange. Jun Changshao did not reject the title of husband and said coldly, "You guys, who is the leader?" Swish. 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 Lingyun Continent, Xingxian Continent, and the other powerhouses, as well as the 6 heaven-class experts, all pointed at Hong Yao. Fuck. Hong Yao's mentality was already broken, and now his teammates were tricking him again. That was really, Palace Master Hong. Jun Changshao touched his smooth head and said with a cold gaze, "When will you change your habit of bullying newbies?" Jun Patriarch. It's a misunderstanding. Hong Yao had a strong desire to live deep in his heart. Even if his expression was broken, he still did not give up and said, "This is definitely a big misunderstanding." Speaking of this, he bent down. Holding up a few space rings with both hands, he said with a trembling voice, "Please listen to my explanation." Swish. Jun Changshao waved his hand and took back the rings. His spiritual senses entered them and found that there were a lot of spirit stones inside. He said, "I'll give you a chance to explain." Hong Yao secretly heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly adjusted his thoughts and organized his words. He said, "Isn't this an opportunity? Our alliance is for the convenience of obtaining it. We are not deliberately targeting Madame June." Madame June? Rose Queen said secretly, "The customs of the other planes seem to be that women follow men's surnames." What? Listening to this, the customs of the Soul Race continent were that men followed women's surnames? Outsiders had to call Goxing young Master Hua when they saw him. Is that so? Jun Changshao looked coldly at the big shots of the other planes. Yes. 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 Is that so? Jun Changshao asked again, raising the pitch of the word yes. After all, the big shots of the other planes had been scammed before and had rich experience. They instantly raised their space rings and said, "Yes, yes, yes." Swish. Jun Changshao waved his hand and skillfully took it back. He said, "Opportunities rely on luck. If you can't force it, then don't force it. Why do you have to form an alliance?" Jun Patriarch has a point. Hong Yao cupped his hands and said, "I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first." Go, go. Jun Changshao said. Hong Yao turned and left with sweat all over his forehead. However, he didn't go far before he heard Jun Changshao say loudly, "Palace Master Hong, Jun will personally visit you one day." Puff. Palace Master Hong spat out a mouthful of blood. He was obviously trying to scam him again. Rose Queen was his wife. He joined forces with the other planes to target her. The matter was so big. If he could settle it with just a few 100,000 spirit stones, he wouldn't be the crazy Jun Changshao. Swish. 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 The cultivators of the Lingyun continent, Xingxian continent, and other planes all retreated. However, before they left, they were all reminded by Go Sheng that they would visit him one day. The 6 of you should be from the first-tier vast continent and Shalos continent, right? Just as the heaven-class experts were about to slip away, Jun Changshao said loudly, when you go back, please be sure to tell your base master that Jun will personally visit him soon. Off-screen voice, get your boss to prepare the money for me. The 6 heaven-class experts' mouths twitched. Then, they quickly disappeared with their people. In just a moment, the 60,000 to 70,000 cultivators who had gathered in the area where the opportunity had appeared had disappeared without a trace. Even the cultivators who were purely here to snatch the opportunity had hidden as far away as possible. An earth-shattering battle had ended before it even started. Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, this is deterrence. Suddenly, he turned around and grabbed her hand. He said with a cold gaze, what are you doing? Swish. Rose Queen coiled around Jun Changshao like a snake. Her other hand was placed on his head at lightning speed. She smiled and said, husband, your head is so round and smooth. Chapter 1172. Queen Rose didn't have a bald head fetish. The main reason was that even if Jun Changshao lost his hair, it wouldn't affect his looks at all. On the contrary, he looked even cuter than before, so she couldn't help but want to touch him. If it were Du Nan, I would have kicked him out of the dimensional battlefield. Therefore, if Queen Rose really had a bald head fetish, it was only Go Sheng himself. At this moment, she was like a soft snake, coiling in front of her husband. No matter how he tried to block her, he still couldn't avoid being touched on the head. To be honest, Jun Changxiao's head was big and round. Not to mention Queen Rose, even he felt very comfortable touching it. Ding! The host has spent 1,000 contribution points and obtained a modified wig X1. It has been transported into the space ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 650,007,0000. Go Sheng, who couldn't take it anymore, spent 5,000 contribution points in the mid-level store and bought a wig to put on his head. However, what made him vomit blood was that although this so-called modified wig looked like real hair after wearing it, due to the influence of the environment and time, the hairstyle was actually an afro. Ha ha ha. The professionally trained system couldn't help but laugh. Queen Rose said rather dejectedly, you look good bald. Why do you have to hide it? Jun Changshao forcefully suppressed the irritation in his heart and said with a straight face, first of all, I'm not obligated. The camera turned spiritually. Holding all kinds of resources with both hands, the expression on his face was extremely interesting. Queen Rose put another space ring on it, clapped her hands, and smiled. I, Rose of Flowers, am not someone who relies on my husband's help. These are your rewards for helping me. Big sister. You're so cooperative, you're making me a failure. However. Queen Rose's gaze was cold. I won't let go of the planes that came to besiege us just now. In fact, without Jun Changxiao's sudden rescue, although it would be difficult for her to fight against so many planes, she would still make the other party pay a painful price. What do you want to do? What does my husband want to do? Jun Changxiao looked at her in bewilderment. Suddenly, he seemed to have understood that this woman was thinking the same thing as him. They were going to visit all the major planes one by one. The system said, this is the rhythm of a husband and wife working together to blackmail. Ding! Epic quest completed. Commencing calculation. Ding! The host has successfully protected his loved ones and has met the prerequisites. The epic level mission has been completed with a completion rate of 150%. The host has received 75,000 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 1,400,007,0000. Ding! Overflow of sect contribution points. Ha ha ha. The system laughed unscrupulously. I finally got it right for once. I didn't get slapped in the face, ha ha ha. Although its laughter was bold and unrestrained, it was more desolate. After all, it had been slapped in the face all year round. Today, it finally saw the light of day, and the clouds parted to see the moon. It was the first anniversary. Please give the strongest face-slapping system a round of applause. Jun Changshao squatted on the ground and grabbed his afro with both hands. He howled in his heart, even the epic level quest thinks that she's my family. Don't be stubborn. The system said, accept reality. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing epic level quest 11. You have received Divine Level Talent Modification Liquid X1, Divine Level Sword Path Talent Liquid X1, Opening Seal Talisman, 3, X1. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing Epic Level Quest 12. You have received Divine Level Talent Modification Liquid X2, Divine Level Formation Path Talent Liquid X1, Divine Level 7 Mysterious Sunglow Fragment Scroll X1, Divine Level Weapon Modification Stone exclusive to the Lingyan Pavilion X1. Frequent notifications sounded in his ears. Comparing the rewards of the two epic level quests, Shur 12's quest was obviously better than Shur 11's. The reason was that one only completed 100% while the other completed 150%. The extra 50% might be due to the fact that after Jun Changshao appeared, he used his powerful deterrence to scare off dozens of realms that had joined forces. Jun Changshao's happiest moment every time the epic level quest was given out. But now, he was pulling his hair with difficulty. He looked like he was about to break down. Why was it so difficult? Because the modified wig had turned from an afro to a buzz cut. It was too short and hard to grab. This product that would automatically change its hairstyle every once in a while, give me a few hundred of them. Buy. Jun Changshao opened the advanced merchant shop. Because he was frustrated, he used all his excess contribution points to buy elixirs and weapon recipes. Whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, a majestic wave of air surged out. Jun Changshao's realm had also advanced from the peak of the sword and martial saints to the great perfection level. Feeling the more explosive power, as well as his own deeper understanding of the heaven, earth, and space attributes, he clenched his fists and said to himself, I've become stronger again. The system complained, you've become bald too. Did you guys hear? The husband of the Rose Empress from the Soul Clan continent is Jun Changshao. Oh my god. This is breaking news. No wonder a new realm is so powerful. It turns out that there's an amazing man behind them. Didn't Jun Changshao come to the dimensional battlefield and do whatever he wants? They're really a couple. The Scarlet Sea continent and Lingyun continent joined forces to attack Jun Changshao's wife. Didn't they kick an iron plate full of thorns? Sigh, the major realms are going to bleed again. Just as everyone was discussing, Jun Changshao had already appeared outside the Scarlet Sea continent stronghold. A light breeze blew. The curly hair on his forehead fluttered. At this time, Gou Sheng's hairstyle changed from a buzz cut to a curly hairstyle. The system couldn't help but sigh. Uncle Jiao was the first person to have this hairstyle. The host is now the second. You. Scram. Okay. The Rose Empress also followed. She stood behind Jun Changshao and kept staring at the back of his head. She had the urge to raise her hand and pull off his wig. Shwa. Shwa. Hong Yao flew out of the stronghold with a few elders. He cupped his hands in a trembling manner and said, Sect Master Jun, let's listen to Jun first. Jun Changshao waved his hand and interrupted. The Soul Continent and your Scarlet Sea Continent have no enmity before, right? No. Then why did you send people to bully them when they just arrived? You failed to bully them and got bullied instead. It can only be said that your skills are inferior. You have no objections to this, right? No objections. Since you have no objections, why did you join forces with the other realms to continue making things difficult for them? This, Hong Yao's forehead was dripping with sweat. Brother. Grandpa. Don't you just want money? Don't beat around the bush, okay? I'll give as much as you want. Jun Changshao was trying to reason with him, not extort him. So, he took out an abacus made of pure gold and did some careful calculations. Then, he said, I'll add up to 5 million for mental damage, loss of working time, and nutrition. Here. I'll give. At this time, Palace Head Hong had to quickly send the demon couple away even if he had to sell everything he had. Palace Head Hong. At the end, Jun Changshao said, don't bully newcomers in the future. After all, it's not easy for anyone. Hong Yao raised his hand and swore, if my Scarlet Sea continent dares to bully newcomers in the future, I'm willing to be struck by lightning. First, he provoked Jun Changshao and then Rose Queen. These were two extremely heavy lessons, so as long as he was still the leader of the stronghold, he would not let his subordinates engage in battlefield violence again. Let's go. Jun Changshao waved his hand. Rose Queen followed. On the way, she smiled and said, husband's methods of extortion are so gentle. If it were me, I would definitely beat him up first. Jun Changshao was about to go crazy. This woman kept calling him husband, making him feel like his mind was about to explode. Endure. I'll endure. Since he didn't like it, why did Jun Changshao let Rose Queen follow him? Because this matter was related to her, he could justifiably extort resources from the various realms. Swish. His magically modified hairstyle changed again. His curly hair turned into a swept-back hairstyle. Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed. He first put on his windbreaker and dazzling sunglasses. Finally, he hummed a cigar in his mouth and said, when we arrive at the Lingyun continent, when I shake my shoulder, you go forward and catch my clothes. Why? Don't ask why, just do as I say. Okay, husband. Chapter 1173. Outside the Lingyun stronghold. Jun Changshao stopped with his hair combed back, a windbreaker, sunglasses, and a cigar in his mouth. At this time, if a disciple followed behind him and sang superstars in troubled times, he would definitely be able to bring out the patriarch of the sect of all times. Unfortunately, Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji were not here. But the one behind him was Rose Queen. This woman was tall and beautiful. She also had the aura of a high and mighty queen. In an instant, she made Gosheng look like a bodyguard who wore sunglasses and a black suit and didn't smile. This taught them that they should never be in the same frame with people with strong auras, because it was easy to become a green leaf. Swoosh! Jun Changshao shrugged. Rose Queen forgot her previous warning and did not go forward to catch it. She let the windbreaker fall to the ground. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. On the way here, he had reminded her almost 800 times. Why did she drop the ball at the crucial moment? Oh. Rose Queen's reflexes were a little slow. She picked up the windbreaker, patted off the dust and put it on Jun Changshao again. Big sister. I told you to catch it, put it on my hand, and return it. It's fine if you didn't do it, but why did you put it on me again? I didn't notice just now. Do it again. Rose Queen transmitted her voice. Jun Changshao almost vomited blood. Forget it, forget it. Gosheng adjusted his state of mind and looked at the frightened big shot who walked out of the stronghold. Don't talk. Listen to Jun first. This guy used the same excuse that he used to blackmail the Scarlet Sea continent on the Lingyun continent. The other party was speechless and could only compensate with spirit stones. Before leaving, they had to repeatedly promise that they would not bully the newcomers. The third stop. Xingxian continent. However, Just as Jun Changshao walked to the stronghold and was about to shake off the windbreaker, Rose Queen took it for him. What kind of cooperation is this? This pretentious guy, can I still happily pretend? It didn't matter if he could act tough or not. The key was that he needed money and compensation. Jun Changshao and the Rose Queen went to 8 realms and obtained 20 million spirit stones. The Scarlet Sea continent and the Lingyun continent were the main culprits, so the compensation was higher. The other planes were only accomplices, so the compensation was not much. When it came to extorting money, Jun Changshao had always followed the principle of not overdoing it, because it could easily backfire and make the situation go out of control. Rose Queen, who was following him, didn't say anything. She had a look that said, "I'm relieved to leave this matter to my husband." Of course. When it came to splitting the money, this woman became shrewd. Jun Changshao had intended to give her 30% and take 70% for himself. However, she disagreed and even rolled her eyes. 50-50. Please. Go Xing naturally wouldn't back down. He said indifferently, "I helped you resolve the crisis, so it's only right that I take 70%. Rose Queen said, "I've already paid you. These resources must be divided equally between the two of us. Besides, if it weren't for me, would you have such a good opportunity to extort me?" Jun Changshao compromised. "I'll take 60%, you take 40%. 50-50, Rose Queen said. Jun Changshao didn't want to waste time because of a small profit, so he said impatiently, okay, we'll split it 50-50. Thus, on the way to the vast continent, the two of them divided the 20 million spirit stones. In this regard, Rose Queen was really meticulous. She divided the spirit stones of different qualities and levels equally, not letting Go Xing gain any advantage at all. The system sighed. The host's wife is good at running a household. Get lost. Jun Changshao cursed and continued to walk to the vast continent. However, Rose Queen said solemnly, "This first-tier plane may not be willing to pay." Tsk Jun Changshao said disapprovingly, "As long as I have my eyes on my prey, even if it's a miser, I can pluck all the feathers off his body." Is that so? Rose Queen smiled and said, "I'm looking forward to it." Swish. The swept-back hair on Jun Changshao's head turned into a mushroom. It had to be said that this guy's foundation was good. No matter what hairstyle he had, he could perfectly control it. Pfft. Seeing the mushroom-like head, Rose Queen couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. Vast continent stronghold. Jia Haojia, who was sitting at the head of the table, had a worried look on his face. A few heaven-class rankers went to help the others deal with Rose Queen, but in the end, a Jun Changshao appeared out of nowhere. Moreover, the two of them were still husband and wife. This was a bit troublesome. Everyone. Jia Haojia's expression was ugly. "Do you have a good plan?" An elder said, "According to the information this old man has gathered, Jun Changshao is a person who likes to extort. The Nine Heavens continent has suffered a loss before." Humph. An elder with a more irritable personality said indifferently, "Our vast continent is not the Nine Heavens continent. How can we submit?" A few heaven-class rankers informed them of Jun Changshao's visit, and they guessed that he was here to extort money. "That's right." An elder said coldly, "Our vast continent is a first-tier plane after all. If we are extorted by Jun Changshao, how can we continue to walk in the martial arts world in the future?" Jia Haojia fell silent once again. Patriarch. A respected old man with gray hair said, "Although Jun Changshao is strong, he is still against the rules. Even the stronghold has been sealed by the upper realm. We don't have to be afraid of him. Not to mention, it's impossible for that guy to break into the stronghold. What does Elder Dan mean? If Jun Changshao comes, this old man will go and meet him first. If it's really not possible, then tell everyone not to go out for the time being." Jia Haojia understood. Elder Dan was telling him that he would not compromise with Jun Changshao. All right. He slapped the armrest and said coldly, I'd like to see if this crazy killing god dares to extort our vast continent. 9 Heavens Continent. Mo Shangsheng put down his teacup and said in disbelief, so Empress Rose's husband is Jun Changshao. No wonder he dares to be so unscrupulous in the dimensional battlefield. That was close. That was close. Fortunately, I didn't follow the Scarlet Sea continent to deal with the Soul Clan continent. Mo Shangsheng was very glad that he did not participate in the previous decision. At the same time, the corners of his mouth curled up into a gloating smile. He had been blackmailed by Jun Changshao before, so he had always been unhappy. Now that the vast continent and Saros continent had provoked that guy, they would definitely be in a worse state than him. Comfortable. Really comfortable. City Lord. An elder said, the vast continent cares a lot about their reputation. I'm afraid they won't compromise with Jun Changshao. Mo Shangsheng shook his head and said, if they compromise, they might be able to save a lot of money. If they don't, then they'll be extorted by that guy until they go bankrupt. Because he had experienced the pain, he understood Jun Changshao very well. Ta! In the sandstorm area, a foot suddenly appeared. The camera followed up. Jun Changshao, wearing sunglasses and holding a cigar, stood in the vast continent's stronghold. Swoosh! He raised his head, lifted his hips, and shook his shoulders. His windbreaker fell gracefully. Empress Rose caught it, put it on her wrist, and returned to her original position. Didn't they establish a tacit understanding just like that? Jun Changshao took out a loudspeaker and shouted loudly, Patriarch of the Sect of all times, Jun Changshao, has come to visit today. Huff! Huff! Suddenly, a stream of light flew out from the stronghold. A tsunami of air burst out and quickly gathered into a palm print, pressing down with the power to shake the space. A welcome ceremony? Jun Changshao sneered and stood proudly in place. Huff huff huff. Sword and martial aura spread around him like rolling clouds and mist, then he greeted it with a fist. Boom, the sky exploded, and the space collapsed. Whoosh! The palm print that emerged from the stronghold was crushed into nothingness on the spot. Elder Shan, who had used his move, retreated until he could barely stabilize his body. He could not help but spit out blood, and his eyes were filled with horror. Chapter 1174. Elder Dan directly rushed out of the stronghold and exploded, clearly telling Jun Changshao that they would not compromise. Very stubborn. Very much like a first-tier plane. However, Jun Changshao was not to be trifled with. Since the vast continent had welcomed him in such a manner, he had no choice but to return the favor. He, who had just broken through to the peak of Wuxia, also exploded, sending the other party flying back and almost falling to the ground. Elder Dan was shocked. He was a heaven-class expert, but he could not even take a punch from that guy. A few hours ago, he could take it because Jun Changshao was only at the peak of Wuxia at that time. But now, not to mention him as a heaven-class expert, even if there were 2 more, he might not be able to take it because Jun Changshao, whose realm had increased, was absolutely invincible at the same level. This was very strong. Queen Rose said in surprise, my husband seems to have become stronger again, could it be related to baldness? Whether I'm strong or not has nothing to do with baldness. Jun Changshao roared. Queen Rose smiled and said, the more you explain, the more you try to cover it up. Jun Changshao suppressed his anger, turned to look at the stronghold of the vast continent, and shouted angrily, Jun Changshao, quickly pay up. Since the other party used such a ceremony to welcome him, they definitely did not follow the procedure. It was as simple as it could be. Jun Changshao. Elder Dan pressed down on his damaged meridians and said in a deep voice, why should the vast continent give you money? Jun Changshao covered his face and laughed. Come on, you're a heaven-class expert after all, why would you ask such a stupid question? Because he's my husband, Queen Rose said. Jun Changshao wanted to transform into the roaring emperor again. However, he suppressed it. After all, this reason was invulnerable to ask for money. Go Sheng had changed. For money, he actually, stop, he was like this from the beginning, okay? Old man, I want to ask you, why should the vast continent deal with the Soul clan? Jun Changshao asked. Elder Dan fell silent. He knew that if he said that he was going to help the other planes, he would definitely be scolded until he was speechless. In this world where the strong prey on the weak, you actually dare to ask me why? What a joke, Jun Changshao mocked mercilessly. Indeed. In a world where martial arts were respected, there was no need to talk about why one should do anything. If you insist on giving me an excuse, then I'm happy to do so. Jun Patriarch. Jia Haojie walked out of the main hall and cupped his fists. The vast continent didn't know that you and Rose Empress were husband and wife. Please forgive us for our previous offense. It was impossible to give him money, but it was possible to resolve the conflict. What's more, the heaven-class experts he sent did not harm his woman. It was too much to ask for money. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, "Come out for a moment and let me slap you. I'll forgive you, and we'll be even." Jia Haojie's face darkened. He was the leader of a stronghold on duty in the vast continent. Being slapped by him was equivalent to having his dignity trampled on. Humph, Elder Dan sneered and said, "Jun Patriarch, we've already apologized. If you don't accept it and insist on blackmailing us, then you can continue to stand outside." He was sent back by a punch, and many of his meridians were damaged. He no longer had the courage to go out and meet that guy. What? Jun Changshao touched his nose and said with a smile, "So you're saying that you're fearless because you have a stronghold to protect you? Otherwise?" Elder Dan sneered and said, "You can still barge in." "Oh, right. Your Falling Star Continent stronghold has been sealed and replaced by the Soul Race's continent. You've lost the right to declare war on other planes." No wonder he dared to fight Jun Changshao to the end. If the Falling Star Continent stronghold had not been sealed by the upper realm and still had the right to declare war on other planes, he and Jia Haojie would definitely have to think carefully and follow their hearts. Replaced by the Soul Race's continent. Queen Rose muttered. Suddenly, she came to a realization and said, "The bastard plane that violated the rules earlier, was the Falling Star Continent?" Jun Changshao shrugged and said, "I didn't expect that the unlucky plane that replaced my Falling Star Continent would be the Soul Race's continent." Rose Queen almost couldn't resist the urge to rush over and pull his wig off. Whoosh! Jun Changshao waved his hand and summoned a chair. Then, he sat down and crossed his legs. He said, "I'll count to 10. If you can't take out 10 million spirit stones, don't blame me for being ruthless." 10 million spirit stones. The sneer on Elder Dan's face deepened. If it weren't for his status, he would have said directly, "You're dreaming." 1. Jun Changshao shouted. Jia Haojie and Elder Dan clasped their hands and sneered. They looked like they were saying, "We're standing in the stronghold. Come in and fight us if you can." 2. 3. With every word Jun Changshao shouted, his tone became solemn, and his eyes gradually became emotionless. 10. All of a sudden, he skipped the rest without following the procedure and directly shouted the last count. Then, he disappeared from the chair and appeared in front of the boundless mainland stronghold barrier. He raised his fist abruptly and gathered an explosive wave to blast it. At that moment, Jun Changshao was very serious. Every time this expression appeared, it meant that he was serious. Naive. You're overestimating yourself. The smile on Jia Haojie and Elder Dan's faces deepened. They didn't deny that Jun Changshao was strong, but to use his fist to blast the stronghold was really overestimating himself and underestimating the defensive barrier set up by the upper realm. Queen Rose also frowned and said, "Husband, is he crazy again?" The defensive barrier around the stronghold was even stronger than the deep space of a plane. Even a void-breaking realm expert couldn't shake it, but he dared to blast it with his fist. If there was a backlash, if he's disabled, I'll take care of him. Queen Rose thought to herself. Whoosh! Whoosh! Waves of air erupted, extremely tyrannical. However, just as all kinds of special effects were activated to the extreme, Jun Changxiao's right fist suddenly stopped. He opened his palm and the pocket-sized flower opened its mouth to bite the barrier of the stronghold. Production team, motherfucker, compensate me for my expenses. Crack. 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 The summoned flower gnawed at the barrier of the vast continent's stronghold, and soon a big hole was bitten out. Swoosh! Jun Changxiao raised his hand and pointed his finger at it. With just a light touch, the defensive barrier around the stronghold collapsed as if it was weaker than paper. Once the flower bit a hole, the tyrannical defense system was equivalent to losing its effectiveness. Thud. Jun Changxiao walked toward the dumbfounded Jia Haojie and Elder Dan. With every step he took, the Xianyuan divine armor was on his body, the jade dragon asks the heaven's sword was hanging on his waist, and the heavenly spear of 9 heavens and 10 earths was in his hand. His robe fluttered in the wind, as if he had instantly turned into Zhao Zilong of Changshan. My husband, you're so handsome. The Rose Queen suddenly turned into a little girl who was obsessed with love. Swoosh! When he was 10 feet away from Jia Haojie and Elder Dan, Jun Changxiao stopped. The heavenly spear of 9 heavens was pressed against the ground, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, outlining a rare evil smile. He said, "Both of you, I'm coming in." Swoosh! After that, a powerful stream of light burst out close to the ground, tearing a long trench and slamming into the main hall. Boom! The building that had existed for thousands of years collapsed, stirring up dust all over the sky. Huff! Huff! At the same time, the horrifying pressure from the perfected sword and martial sages erupted from Jun Changxiao's body. As long as the vast continent's martial artists in the stronghold touched it, they felt as if they were carrying a mountain, and their faces instantly became extremely ferocious. Jun Patriarch. Jia Haojie finally recovered from his stupor and said quickly, "The vast continent will pay. The vast continent will pay spirit stones, 20 million. Here. Here. Here." Chapter 1175. The stronghold barrier of the dimensional battlefield was set up by the upper realm. In terms of defensive strength, no one in the mortal world could break through it. Jia Haojie and Elder Dan relied on this to make a fuss in front of Jun Changxiao. "Come on. Come in and hit me." It was only when Jun Changxiao stopped fully armed and destroyed the hall that represented the dignity of the dimension with one shot that the two realized that he really came in. In an instant, Jia Haojie's stubbornness and backbone disappeared without a trace. He immediately followed his heart and chose to compensate. Since he was scared, he was willing to compensate. Jun Changxiao would definitely not deliberately make things difficult for him, so he asked for 20 million. However, seeing that the other party agreed without hesitation, he could not help but break down. "Am I fucking underpaid?" "Yes." The system said, "After all, the vast mainland and the 9 heavens mainland are first-tier dimensions." Jun Changxiao was sure that, at most, he would just lick it back. He said, "Including the service fees for pets and the depreciation of equipment, your continent needs to add another 10 million. Huh? Jia Haojie was dumbfounded. 20 million spirit stones was already a lot. Taking it out would definitely break his bones and tendons. Adding another 10 million would definitely bankrupt him. You're not giving. Jun Changxiao's face darkened. A terrifying aura erupted. The veins of the vast mainland martial artists in the entire stronghold bulged, and they were drenched in sweat. Go Sheng was now Wu Xing's great fulfillment. If he broke through again, he would be a martial emperor. His powerful strength was not something a few heaven-class characters could compare to. Therefore, with a little pressure, he could turn this place into a bloodbath. Why did Jia Haojie cower so quickly? It was because he had no use in the stronghold. Once this guy entered the territory, everyone, including himself, would become weeds that he could cut at will. Moreover, there was also the Rose Queen. If this couple caused a ruckus in his stronghold, the vast mainland would be removed from the dimensional battlefield before the next day. Here, under pressure and threat, Jia Haojie could only continue to compromise. If he had known this would happen, he would not have done it in the first place. In fact, he could not be blamed for his stubbornness earlier. After all, no one would have thought that this guy actually had the space-time worm that could easily break through space barriers. Compromising saved him a lot of money. If he didn't compromise, he would be extorted by that guy until he went bankrupt. These two sentences came from Mo Shangxing's mouth, and now it seemed like he was right. If Jia Haojie were to take out 30 million spirit stones, which were no weaker than the hexagram stone, he could really declare bankruptcy. As for Elder Dan, during the whole process of the Patriarch's compromise and the payment of money, he had been transparent from beginning to end. The firm and unyielding attitude he had shown during the meeting had long disappeared. Hey! Jun Changxiao looked at him and said, how about we go out and fight? After breaking through Wu Xing's consummation, although he could feel that his power was much stronger than before, he had not fully unleashed it yet. It would be a good idea to test it against a heaven-class character of the same level. Elder Dan covered his chest with one hand and said with a pale face, when I fought with Jun Patriarch just now, my meridians were damaged. I can't fight anymore. His words had two meanings. One was that he admitted that Go Sheng was stronger than him, and the other was that he was injured. He was indeed worthy of being called an expert among experts. Even when he was scared, he was still fresh and refined. All right. After Jun Changxiao counted 30 million spirit stones, he cupped his hands and said, Jun won't disturb you any longer. I'll take my leave first. Although this guy looked calm, he was actually very excited. After all, there were so many spirit stones comparable to the hexagram stone used for the development of the sect. It would definitely be able to upgrade the sect to another level. Plop. After Jun Changxiao left the stronghold, Jia Haojie finally couldn't help but collapse. In the vast continent, he was considered a very wealthy person. Now that he had to hand over 30 million spirit stones, he instantly fell from the richest man to a beggar. Patriarch, Elder Dan came over to support him. Get lost. Jia Haojie said angrily, get lost. If I didn't listen to your bullshit suggestion and choose not to compromise, I wouldn't have lost so many spirit stones. No, his heart was too painful. It was a heart-wrenching pain. The first-tier vast continent had completely lost to Jun Changxiao today. It could be said that they had lost money and face. If this matter spread out, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. Using money to resolve grudges was already not bad. One had to know that Elder Dan's attack without warning was enough to give Jun Changxiao a reason to massacre the entire vast continent. Half. On the way to Shalos continent, Rose Queen said. Jun Changxiao said angrily, I was the one who used the time worm to break open the stronghold barrier, and I was the one who asked for the money. Why should I give you half? Rose Queen stopped, and said, in a world where the strong preys on the weak, you actually asked me why. What a joke. This despicable woman actually copied his words. Forget it, forget it. Jun Changxiao took a few steps back, keeping a certain distance from her, and assumed Huang Feihong's posture, and said, you and I will fight around, and win half. Previously, the quality of the spirit stones was not too high, so there was no need to fight for small profits. The vast continent spirit stones were much stronger, so they would definitely not take out 15 million. Moreover, Rose Queen's strength was not ordinary. He wanted to see if he could press her face to the ground and rub it with all his might without using his trump card. The system collapsed. With the host's mentality, I really don't understand, what exactly does the most supreme queen of the soul race see in him? Really? Really? Alright. Rose Queen's body was enveloped in green attributes, condensing into a battle armor, and said, if I win, half. If I lose, all the spirit stones will be given to me. Sure. After Jun Changshao finished speaking, he immediately realized that something was wrong, and roared, is there any difference between your words and what you said earlier about being my servant if you lose, and being your master if I lose? Rose Queen laughed, you still remember the past so clearly, husband really has me in his heart. Jun Changshao said in a flustered and exasperated manner, cut the crap, if you win, all the spirit stones are yours, if I win, all the spirit stones are mine. Sure. Come, let's fight. Hoo, the cultivation of sword and martial saint perfection erupted in an instant, forming a turbulent wave of air. However, because he used too much force, the wig was blown away, and his shiny head was exposed. Jun Changshao, Rose Queen, ha 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 ha. The system's unbridled laughter echoed in his ears. Although Jun Changshao's wig collapsed, he couldn't care less. His fists gathered explosive power, ready to strike at any time. Rose Queen also became serious. After all, her husband was very strong now. Hoo. Two powerful waves of air filled the battlefield, and the air gradually became extremely austere. A wonderful battle between husband and wife was about to begin in the plain battlefield. However, just as the two of them were about to make their move, dark clouds suddenly gathered in the sky, and a deep voice sounded, Jun Changshao of the Falling Star Continent broke the rules and entered the plain battlefield, and used illegal means to break the stronghold barrier of the vast continent. He will receive the most severe punishment from the upper realm. Chapter 1176. His deep voice reverberated throughout the dimensional battlefield, clearly reaching everyone's ears. Mo Shangshan, who was sitting in the main hall and waiting for news of the vast mainland's misfortune, spat out his tea. He was not concerned about breaking the rules. After all, hadn't that guy been breaking the rules since he entered the dimensional battlefield? What really made Mo Shangshan incredulous was that Jun Changshao had actually used illegal means to break the vast mainland stronghold's barrier. Oh my god! That was very, very scary. Ever since the dimensional battlefield was created by the upper realm, the stronghold was defined as unbreakable. It could only be done by declaring war and punishing ghosts on the battlefield. Therefore, as long as everyone did not make mistakes and did not accept the challenge, there would always be a very safe place to stay even if the enemies were all over the battlefield. Now that Jun Changshao had a way to break it, did that not mean that he could enter at will and extort people at will? Jun Patriarch. Mo Shangshan said with a serious expression, you're in trouble now. If it was just a crazy massacre, the upper realm might be lenient if there were people there. However, this kind of behavior of breaking other dimensions was definitely shaking the basic rules defined by the upper realm. Especially. In the end, it was not a punishment, but a severe punishment. This meant that the higher realms were serious, and they wanted to kill Jun Changshao. City Lord. An elder hurried over and said in shock, the sky outside has changed. Swoosh. Mo Shangshan hurried out and saw that the area in the sky that he could see was filled with rolling dark clouds. The originally desolate and grey environment seemed to have turned into a dark hell. The upper realm is angry. The upper realm is angry. The vast mainland stronghold. The space cracks that were bitten by the space-time worms were slowly recovering. Jia Haojia, who was paralyzed on the ground, heard the deep voice and suddenly felt like a wronged child. Tears flowed uncontrollably. Patriarch. Elder Dan said excitedly and tremblingly, The upper realm is going to take revenge for us. They're going to seek justice for us. To be honest, Jun Changxiao's act of breaking the stronghold by force was indeed domineering. However, did this mean that the vast mainland was innocent? No. They weren't good people either. It was just that they had met Jun Changxiao. Because if you are strong, you can bully others as you wish. If you meet someone stronger and get bullied, don't pretend to be an honest person or a pitiful person. The voice from the upper realm resounded in the sky. The dark clouds that filled the battlefield were like an army pressing down on the border. All the martial artists were shocked and guessed that Jun Changxiao was really going to be in big trouble this time. It's over. There was worry in Ku Jinnan's eyes. Last time, they were punished for cheating in the Azura arena, so they only sent battlefield specters. This time, the battle array was simply vast. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, no matter where they were on the battlefield, all the cultivators could clearly see black shadows flying out from the dark clouds in the sky like locusts. Go! Let's go take a look. At this moment, the heavens and earth were filled with killing intent, but it still could not stop the strong desire of the cultivators to watch the show. Palace Master. In the main hall, an elder asked, Are you going or not? Hong Yao, who had just been extorted of a wave of money and had yet to come back to his senses, after a difficult decision, he said, Yes. The upper realm had come to punish Jun Changxiao, and with such a great force, he definitely could not sit still. Sigh. After the scar healed, he forgot the pain. Of course, Hong Yao did not have the mentality of fishing in troubled waters and adding insult to injury. He purely went over to watch the show to broaden his horizons. Whoosh! Whoosh! For a moment, the cultivators from all over the world rushed toward the area with the densest dark clouds at the fastest speed. It was no exaggeration. When Jun Changxiao was punished by the upper realm, all the forces on the battlefield were mobilized. Even Mo Shangshan, who had always been cautious and intelligent, could not sit still and rushed over with a group of masters. However, when they arrived at the scene, they were all dumbfounded. In their field of vision, the battlefield specters wearing black armor and holding scythes lined up neatly. Because there were too many of them, the entire ground seemed to be dyed black. Hiss! Mo Shangshan sucked in a breath of cold air. He only roughly scanned with his spiritual senses and roughly deduced that there were at least 100,000 battlefield specters. Although they lowered their heads and did not officially activate, from the aura they emitted, their strength was at least at the black level. Comparable to 100,000 half-step Wuxia, fully armed and gathered together, the scene presented could be said to be exceptionally shocking. Moreover, this was only the lowest level. The further his spiritual senses probed, the more he found that there were many earth-level. When Mo Shangshan locked onto the front row, the muscles on his face finally could not help but stiffen, and he said in horror in his heart, at least 100 heaven level. After the cultivators who came one after another saw the strength of 100,000 battlefield specters, there was no one who did not explode mentally, no one who was not shocked. With such terrifying strength, not to mention destroying a few dimensions, even destroying all the dimensions on the battlefield would be a piece of cake. A big battle array. A super big battle array. Even if Jun Changxiao was obliterated, he would definitely be remembered by future generations, because since the opening of the dimensional battlefield, no one had been punished with such a high standard. This feels good. Hong Yao and many of the big bosses of the dimensions looked calm on the surface, but they were overjoyed on the inside. With such a level of punishment, no matter how high that fellow's cultivation was, there was no way he could survive. The camera turned again. Sorry, because there were too many battlefield specters, it took a long time to lock onto Jun Changshao, who seemed to be drowned in the inky black waves. At this moment, Go Sheng's expression was very interesting. When he heard that the upper realm wanted to punish him, he looked indifferent. After all, he had been to the battlefield many times, and just as the readers thought, they were here to give him experience bags again. However, when he saw the black mass of battlefield specters, with 100 heaven-level specters at the front, his heart and expression could not remain calm. The upper realm. You're too ruthless. Whoosh! Rose Queen took out the red lotus demonic moon blade, and the green armor on her body became more solid. Then, she approached Jun Changshao, her beautiful eyes filled with battle intent. Big sister. Are you going to fight with them? If there were only a dozen heaven-level battlefield specters, Jun Changshao would not care. However, there were 100 of them, and almost 100,000 of them were holding the line. If they fought, even if he was not blasted to pieces, they could drag him to death. Run! Run quickly! It was rare for Go Sheng to be afraid. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, layers of solid barriers descended from the dark clouds, like a big pot that was upside down in the sky above Jun Changshao and the 100,000 battlefield specters, forming an absolute lockdown area. There's no hope of running, the system said helplessly. Jun Changshao's expression became serious. The upper realm had made such a big scene and locked down this area. It was obvious that they wanted to kill him. Husband. Rose Queen said, don't be afraid, I'll protect you. In this situation, you don't have to protect me. You should protect yourself first. Jun Changshao. Suddenly, a voice came from the sky. You repeatedly violated the rules and entered the dimensional battlefield, and you used illegal means to destroy the vast continent's stronghold. Do you admit to your crimes? The dark clouds were rolling above, and the 100,000 battlefield specters were below. This scene seemed to have instantly turned Jun Changshao into the great sage, facing the punishment of 100,000 heavenly soldiers. Bang! The heavenly spear of 9 heavens and 10 earths appeared out of thin air, and the bottom of the spear cracked the ground. Swoosh! The Xianyuan divine armor was on him, and the camera swept across Jun Changshao's shiny head. He stood proudly with one hand on the spear's hilt, and an aura of not bowing down to fate appeared around him. He said, I'm not guilty. Why should I admit to my crimes? When he said 7 words, heaven and earth shook. At that moment, all the powerhouses watching him felt respect from the bottom of their hearts. Chapter 1177. The dimensional battlefield was created by the upper realm, and the rules were also set by them. The warriors from the dimension who were called and killed in there, but it was nothing more than a toy for them to admire. No complaints. Yes. However, even if the warriors were unhappy, they could only endure it, because the upper realm was like heaven to them. Going against the upper realm was going against heaven. If they were the main character, even if they went against heaven, they would often be mocked. What did heaven owe you that you had to go against? Heaven did not owe them anything. Strictly speaking, there was also the grace of raising them. No one was so free to go against heaven, and their strength did not allow them to do so. Now, Jun Changshao was holding a spear and wearing armor, and he was arrogant and challenging them, bringing great shock to the powerhouses from all dimensions. He was going against the upper realm, he was going against heaven. The warriors on the dimensional battlefield did not dare to go against the upper realm, but who did not have the heart to do so. Therefore, when Jun Changshao pulled out the banner of the great sage, heaven's equal, and openly went against the voice of the upper realm, it instantly created a subtle resonance with them, and they all felt admiration in their hearts. Jun Patriarch. You did what we did not dare to do, you can be said to be a real man. We are silently cheering for you. No crime. The voice from the upper realm said, it seems that at this time, you still don't realize the crime you have committed. Jun Changshao sneered and said, the upper realm is a playground you opened for you to play. Don't mortals kill for your entertainment? I have been cooperating since I came in, what crime have I committed? Entering the dimensional battlefield without permission, this is one of the crimes. Faking your death in the Azura battlefield, this is the second crime. Destroying the stronghold of the boundless continent, this is the third crime. Hearing the listed crimes, Jun Changshao said disapprovingly, you upper realm are the ones who set the rules, isn't it easy to just casually give me a groundless crime? Stubborn. The tone of the upper realm's voice was a little angry. An ant from the mortal world was actually so arrogant and despotic. Cut the crap. Jun Changshao raised the sky tyrant spear, pointed at the rolling dark clouds, and said arrogantly, you want to punish me, bring it on. Any escape route was blocked. Since there was no choice, there was only us cultivators, why should we fear a battle? Husband. Rose Queen transmitted her voice, I'll assist you. Jun Changshao didn't pay attention to her. He coldly raised his head and said, you can punish me, Jun Changshao, but do you want to implicate the innocent? The upper realm is fair in its rewards and punishments. A deep voice sounded, those who have nothing to do with this, please leave immediately. Jun Changshao turned his back to the Rose Queen and said coldly, don't get in the way here. Get lost. If it was in the past, the system would definitely have ridiculed him, but now it agreed with the host because the upper realm was serious. That woman might be in danger here. I'm not leaving. Rose Queen's eyes were firm as she said, I want to stay and assist you. How could this woman, who had fought in the north and south, not know that she was in danger? But the more it was like this, the more she stayed, because he was my husband and I was his wife. Scram. No. Get lost. Husband and wife are birds of the same forest. Rose Queen took a step back and hugged Jun Changshao. She whispered into his ear, let's die together. Seeing this, the corners of the powerhouse's mouths twitched. In such a serious and dangerous situation, the husband and wife still took the opportunity to show off their affection. There was no one else. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this moment, everyone's eyes widened. Rose Queen, who was behind him, gradually turned into green energy. Jun Changshao knew that she was going to fuse with him again. He stabilized his mind and chose to resist, but he could not stop it at all. In the end, he gained even more strength. He turned green. Go Sheng turned green again, wait a minute, this guy has no hair, so he can't turn green at all. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Jun Changshao, who was already very strong, once again fused with Rose Queen to become Flower Go Sheng. In the dark environment, he was even more dazzling than the stars in the sky. Why? I clearly rejected it, so why did I fuse so easily? Rose Queen said, because we are husband and wife, recognized by the soul race's ability. As long as I am willing, I can fuse with you at any time. This was really unreasonable. Since those who have nothing to do with it don't leave, then accept the punishment together, the upper realm voice said lightly. Whoosh. 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 So like streams of light flew out from the dark clouds in the sky and quickly fused into the bodies of the 100,000 battlefield spirits that were lined up neatly. Caw caw caw. A mechanical sound was heard. They slowly raised their heads, their empty eyes shining. If it was just one, it might not feel much, but 100,000 battlefield spirits moved in unison and came to life. The scene was very explosive. Whoosh whoosh. Violent airwaves erupted, wildly disturbing the space. Mo Shangsheng and the others were outside the seal and were not affected at all. However, just by looking at the condensed airwaves with the naked eye, they could not help but feel a strong shock in the depths of their hearts. If they were standing in Jun Changshao's position, they would have been scared stiff. Jun Changshao. You have violated many rules of the upper realm. Today's punishment is to be a warning to all mortal beings. The upper realm's deep voice came, and the aura it emitted gave people a huge sense of oppression. Swoosh! Swoosh! At this moment, the battlefield spirits that came to life seemed to have received an order. They waved their sickles and pressed down on Jun Changshao. Looking down from above, it looked like a calm lake, but suddenly ripples appeared. Boom! 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 Jun Changshao, who was wearing the Xianyuan divine armor and holding the Sky Tyrant spear, and had the support of the Rose Queen, transformed into a brave Zhao Zilong. Powerful spiritual energy poured into the tip of the spear, and with extremely domineering strength, he swept away all the battlefield spirits that were pressing down on him from all directions. Whoosh! A green light that looked like a giant dragon rushed out from the ground. The camera gave a close-up. Jun Changshao, who was shrouded in explosive energy, was holding the Sky Tyrant spear with both hands. He shouted angrily, "No one has the right to punish me. Not the upper realm, not the heavenly court." Whoosh! Whoosh! The powerful green spear aura fell from the sky like a collapsing mountain, instantly crushing hundreds of battlefield spirits. Whoosh! Suddenly, a heaven-class battlefield spirit rushed up from the side. Then, before it could wave its sickle, the spear aura swept over, and its entire body was instantly split into two. Then, it exploded. This, Mo Shangsheng and the others widened their eyes. A heaven-class battlefield spirit was killed instantly. That guy's strength was too terrifying. Boom! Boom! While everyone was still in shock, Jun Changshao shot down from above. Numerous spear lights appeared, and like a sharp sword, he slaughtered his way through the chaotic army. Thousands of battlefield ghosts unlocked all sorts of postures and flew in all directions. I command the wind and the clouds, I charge as I wish, and all look up to me. I turn the world upside down, I will write a law that respects me. In the training field of the Sect of all times, the modified sound system was playing the song, Superstar in Troubled Times. The disciples of the Sect of all times were dancing as usual. Every time the music reached a climax, Jun Changshao, who was in the dimensional battlefield, would kill wantonly with his gaze like a wild wolf. Xian, Earth. With a sweep of his spear, they were shattered into pieces. Even the heaven-class battlefield spirits were no match for him. Close to 1 million spectators outside the sealed land watched with stunned expressions as Jun Changshao annihilated and slaughtered to his heart's content inside. Boom! Boom! In a short time, countless pieces of armor were scattered on the ground, and over 10,000 battlefield spirits were killed. Monster! This guy is not human. Too scary. Looking at Jun Changshao, who was fighting with more than a dozen heaven-class opponents in the sky and not at a disadvantage, the various dimensions experts were shocked. Chapter 1178. Previously, due to the opportunity, Jun Changshao had gone on a killing spree, and not many people had witnessed it. Now, all the powerful beings from various existential planes had gathered on the battlefield, and they were watching his one-man show in shock. Boom! 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 High up in the sky, Jun Changshao was fighting with more than a dozen heaven-class battlefield spirits. His explosive power and imposing posture made him look like an undefeatable god of war in myths and legends. Die! Whoosh! 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 Boom! A battlefield spirit's helmet was shattered, and his body exploded on the spot. The fragments of his armor instantly scattered in the air. The martial artists from various existential planes were terrified. This was already the fourth heaven class being killed by Jun Changshao on the spot. They were definitely top-notch fighters, and any one of them dying would be a huge loss. Terrifying. It was really too terrifying. At that moment, the martial artists from various existential planes finally understood why the upper realm had sent such a powerful lineup to punish him. It was because sending too few would be no different from sending them to their deaths. Boom! At that moment, Jun Changshao fell from the sky at high speed. Several dents appeared on the energy gathered in front of his chest. It was obvious that he had been attacked by a group. With the Xianyuan divine armor protecting him, it was not a big deal. However, this also showed that although Gosheng was strong, he was not really invincible when surrounded by so many heaven-class beings. Whoosh! 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 Tens of thousands of battlefield spirits charged over and instantly drowned Jun Changshao, who had just landed, in black waves. This is bad. There are so many battlefield spirits. They can exhaust him to death. After many powerful beings gradually calmed down, they were not optimistic about Jun Changshao fighting so many lifeforms created by the upper realm. After all, there was a limit to one person's strength. Boom! There was a sudden explosion. Whoosh! 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 The immense spiritual energy was spreading out crazily like ripples. In slow motion, the area where Jun Changshao was engulfed, and the densely packed battlefield spirits were all blasted away. The entire sky was filled with black shadows. It was definitely a feast for the eyes. It was definitely powerful. Swish! Suddenly, a stream of light shrouded in red and green shot out like a sharp arrow. It directly nailed itself to the Heaven Battlefield Spectre battle helmet that was flying over. It was then sent flying, crashing into the mountain 1,000 feet away with a bang. Hiss hiss hiss. Jun Changshao sprinted out, the surface of the green dragon crescent blade rubbing against the stone floor, creating sparks and lightning along the way. Hoo hoo! A vast amount of attributes burst forth. An imposing figure that was 9 feet tall and had a beard that was 2 feet long appeared in front of him. Previously, Jun Changshao was Zhao Zilong of Changshan. The current Jun Changshao was Hua Xiong, the Marquis of Han Shou-Ting, Guan Yunchang. Hoo hoo! Thick spiritual energy continued to erupt. It was as if a red hair was gathering under him. A righteous force from the east gathered in the sky above the dimensional battlefield. Die! Swish! Jun Changshao, who was possessed by Guan Yu, suddenly waved the green dragon crescent blade, and a light that seemed capable of sweeping away thousands of armies tore through the air in an arc. This special weapon that had helped Gosheng resolve many crises might not appear often, but it did not mean that it had lost its power. This was because even an ordinary branch could kill when used by an expert. Was Jun Changshao strong? Very strong. The strongest person on the Starfall continent. There were 9 thearchs above him. How did he become the strongest? Because in history, there had never been a person who had reached the level of great perfection in both martial arts and sword arts. After completing the epic mission, Jun Changshao's name would be recorded in the history of the Starfall continent forever, creating an immortal legend. Swish, 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 swish. Poochie. Poochie. An extremely powerful blade aura swept out, cutting thousands of battlefield spirits in half. Although they were wearing high-quality armor, they were just like scarecrows in front of absolute power. Swish. Swish. Jun Changshao did not stop there. Taking advantage of the time before the heaven-class warriors arrived, he waved the green dragon crescent blade wildly. Wherever the blade aura passed, helmets flew out and armor cracked. It could be said that one man could hold back 10,000 enemies. After slaughtering another 10,000 battlefield spirits, he flew up, poured all his spiritual energy into the blade, and smashed it down. Not bad. He was throwing the green dragon crescent blade down like a projectile. This was definitely a bomb. Boom! The green dragon crescent blade, which was like a dragon's roar, slammed into the ground, and instantly swept up dust that covered the sky. The corner of the martial artist's mouth twitched violently. Just throwing down a weapon could cause such a commotion. This guy was simply so strong that people could only worship him. Huff huff. The wind whistled, and the dust dissipated. A huge trench appeared on the ground in the distance, like a dry river. The green dragon crescent blade sunk into the ground, emitting an aura of righteousness that made people revere it. The otherworldly battlefield. Show the might of China. Huff huff. Huff huff huff. In the sky, dozens of heaven-class warriors rushed over again. They had no thoughts or senses. They only had Jun Changshao in their eyes, and they only wanted to kill him. Boom. 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 An even more intense battle unfolded. As there were dozens of heaven-class warriors besieging him this time, Jun Changshao was instantly in a sorry state. Although he tried his best to kill a few of them, he still couldn't avoid being bombarded many times, and he fell to the ground with a boom. Unseal it. The system said, otherwise, the host will be exhausted to death. Jun Changshao was indignant. With his breakthrough and the assistance of Rose Queen, his strength could be said to be unprecedentedly strong. However, as there were too many enemies, it was abnormally difficult to fight. Under the attacks of 100 heaven-class warriors, he could still kill 20,000 battlefield spirits. This was not just difficult, it was already very ferocious. Huff huff. Huff huff huff. At this moment, dozens of powerful airwaves erupted in the sky. They folded together, as if turning into an inescapable net, and pressed down on Jun Changshao. With so many powers comparable to great perfection level converging, the power formed caused the space to collapse and the world to lose its color. The spectating martial artists' hearts trembled, and they turned pale with fright. Ta! Jun Changshao spread his legs, and a powerful sword force erupted as he roared furiously, "Who in this world can do anything to me?" Huff huff huff. Under the sound of mountains and rivers shaking, the powerful spiritual airwaves condensed into a solid defensive barrier, and it welcomed the dozens of heaven-class warriors' powers in the strongest state. Crazy! The system roared, crazy! The host could have used the unstoppable blade, but he insisted on using his own strength to resist. His brain must have been kicked by a donkey, and it must have been squeezed by a door. Huff huff. Dozens of overbearing powers pressed down from the sky, and the whole world seemed to have lost its color. The defensive barrier below revealed an unyielding spirit. At that moment, the surroundings seemed to have become incomparably quiet. There were no more whistling of energy or surging airwaves. The spectating martial artists held their breaths. At this moment, they could only watch with dumbfounded expressions as the vast power and tyrannical defense were about to collide. Boom! In the end, the two forces representing attack and defense collided in midair, and a colorful scene appeared, far surpassing the scene imagined by the martial artists of this plane. Ka ka ka. Ka 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 ka. In the sealed area, violent forces rampaged around like ancient ferocious beasts, causing a large area of space to collapse. After a while, the restlessness inside gradually calmed down, and the power gathered by dozens of heaven-class warriors dissipated. The defensive barrier set up by Jun Changshao still existed proudly. He withstood it. He actually withstood it. Pfft. Suddenly, the sound of someone vomiting blood could be heard. Jun Changshao instinctively turned his head and saw that Rose Queen had already left his body. She staggered behind him, and her face was extremely pale as she said weakly, "Husband, I can't help you anymore." Chapter 1179. The support-type soul divine ability could not last forever. When the person being assisted suffered a fatal attack or consumed a lot of energy, they would be released. Jun Changshao had used his own strength to resist dozens of heaven-class battlefield spirits, which had consumed a lot of Rose Queen's energy, so she was forced to leave. Because she had been assisting her husband to resist the powerful forces, she could not avoid the backlash, and her meridians were damaged to varying degrees. In other words, Jun Changshao did not want to rely on unstoppable blade to fight the battlefield spirits head-on. In the end, he would be fine, but Rose Queen would be harmed. Others would either harm their father or son. Go Sheng, who did not take the normal path, would directly harm his wife. Of course, Jun Changshao could not be blamed. After all, he did not know some things to take note of when the soul race support type. But now, Rose Queen and Jun Changshao were released, and the explosion that could fight dozens of heaven-class battlefield spirits instantly decreased by more than half. Whoosh! 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 In the sky, the terrifying forces pressed down again, and the momentum was even stronger than before. The defensive barrier that Jun Changshao had set up still existed, but in comparison, it was much weaker in terms of aura and materialization. Take it head-on. He was dreaming. Don't hesitate. The system roared. Hurry up and remove the seal. Without Rose Queen's assistance, although Jun Changshao was not afraid of the heaven-class battlefield spirits, now that dozens of forces were pressing down, he could not dodge in time. Damn it! He cursed angrily in his heart and could only summon unstoppable blade. Husband! At this moment, Rose Queen's gentle voice reached his ears. Although I can't help you, I can die for you. Jun Changxiao's expression froze. Whoosh! Suddenly, Rose Queen flew up, and her graceful body erupted with rich green attributes, turning into a large net to meet the dozens of powerful forces pressing down on her. In her current state, if she faced such terrifying forces head-on, she would definitely die. Coincidentally, Rose Queen's position happened to be the Love Valley that had been surrounded by the various existential planes previously. Crack! 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 Dozens of different types of power came crashing down with even more power than before, causing space to distort crazily and then distort on a large scale. At this time, if it were any other spectating cultivator, they would have been crushed into powder under the terrifying pressure. That woman is going to die. At the critical moment, she stood up and died for her husband. This feeling is truly worthy of praise and tears. Empress Rose was fearless as she charged forward, causing the various existential planes cultivators to be moved. Swish! Suddenly, a strange energy ripple spread out in the battlefield, and the enormous power that was descending from the sky seemed to have suddenly stopped. Everyone was dumbfounded. At this time, not only did they find that the energy had stopped, but the tens of thousands of ghosts on the battlefield below were also frozen. Even the dust and sand floating in the air seemed to have been frozen. What's going on? All the cultivators subconsciously looked towards the source of the strange ripples and discovered that Jun Changxiao had vanished into thin air. Where is he? Up there. Shwa! 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 Everyone raised their heads and discovered that among the dozens of frozen energy regions, Jun Changxiao was suspended in midair like a god of war. The light reflected from his head was as dazzling as the sun. Empress Rose, who was about to charge forward, widened her eyes. At this moment, she was not concerned about the bald head, but the weapon in her husband's right hand. In the camera, the tip and blade of the knife gradually appeared. Cold light gathered on them, and then all the way up until the weapon's form was completely revealed. It was actually an extremely sharp-looking, watermelon knife. There was a red ribbon at the handle, irregularly wrapped around Jun Changxiao's wrist. The knife flashed. It was even more dazzling than the head. That's right. This was the third form, hard blade, after being modified by the modification stone. Although the shape was a little strange, the aura that sealed space and everything was even stronger than the second form. All the cultivators were speechless. A guy who was as daunting as a god of war suddenly took out a knife used to cut watermelons. This scene did not match the austere atmosphere around them. Go down. Jun Changxiao's back was facing Empress Rose. His words were as cold as the knife's surface, and even had a hint of inviolability. Oh! Empress Rose responded and retracted the released energy back to the ground. As for the battlefield spirits below, because they were all frozen in place, they did not pose any threat to her. After confirming that the woman was in a safe area, Jun Changxiao looked up at the dozens of types of energy gathered in the sky and said calmly, "It's time to end this." Swish! With a swing of hard blade, the knife flare tore through the void. The power that froze the sky exploded on the spot, and the dozens of heaven-class warriors who were sealed higher up were all cut in half at the waist. All the cultivators outside the seal stared with their eyes almost popping out. That guy's casual swing of the knife was like drawing a line with a pen on a piece of paper, and dozens of powerful battlefield spirits were instantly cut in half. The scene was extremely terrifying. Swish! At this moment, Jun Changxiao swung his knife again. Swish! The knife flare shot out, and the dozens of heaven-class warriors in another area were all cut in half at the waist. Their shining eyes immediately dimmed. All the cultivators were dumbfounded at this moment. They could see that Jun Changxiao's watermelon knife was very strong. But, why didn't those battlefield spirits dodge or resist? Why did they let him swing his knife 1 or 2 times? What happened next was unforgettable for all the powerful cultivators. Swish! Jun Changxiao flew down and walked toward the tens of thousands of battlefield spirits that were under his control as if he was taking a stroll. Swish, swish, swish. Swish, swish, swish. The knife flashed frequently in the crowd, crisscrossing. Thud. When Jun Changxiao walked out of the tens of thousands of battlefield spirits and put down hard blade at an angle, the sound of armor cracking could be heard, and helmets flew everywhere. Scary. Scary to death. Fortunately, they were creatures created by the higher realm. If they were human cultivators, the scene would be even more terrifying with the blood-splattering effect. Unbelievable. Rose Queen was in disbelief. Close to 80,000 battlefield spirits and close to 100 heaven-class warriors were easily killed by her husband's watermelon knife-like weapon. Jun Changxiao. Suddenly, a deep voice came from the rolling dark clouds again. The weapon you're using is not an item of this world. It's against the rules to bring it to the dimensional battlefield. Noisy. Jun Changxiao looked up and waved his knife coldly. Swish! The knife flare that seemed to pierce through heaven and earth with supreme power directly tore apart the dark clouds that seemed to cover the whole world. Then, it quickly dispersed and disappeared without a trace. The dark clouds dispersed. The dimensional battlefield returned to its usual color. However, the shock and astonishment in the cultivators' hearts grew even stronger. The battlefield spirits were ultimately just hired thugs sent down. The dark clouds that gathered in the sky represented the higher realm. Jun Changxiao chopped it down. That was equivalent to chopping the heavens. Wait a minute. When this guy chopped at the dark clouds, why did the watermelon knife-like weapon suddenly turn into a large green knife that was embedded in the ground? Could it be that his weapon could transform at will? Chapter 1180. Bang! After cutting off the dark clouds that had gathered in the sky, the blade of the hard blade was stuck to the ground. At this moment it was no longer the previous watermelon knife, but a mold similar to the green dragon crescent blade. The smooth surface of the blade reflected the various broken armors scattered on the ground. The warriors from this plane were stunned. The blade, could it be changed at will? Or could it be that this guy changed his weapon midway, and because it was too fast, he couldn't catch the movement at all? The blade was still the hard blade. This was a special function of the third form. It could change its form at will under the control of the owner. The battlefield ghosts were similar to the 100,000 heavenly soldiers and generals of the heavenly court. Jun Changshao transformed the hard blade into the form of a watermelon knife. Obviously, he planned to slash from the southern heavenly gate to Penglai East Road, slashing back and forth for 3 days and 3 nights without blinking. In the end, he was disappointed. These battlefield ghosts couldn't withstand the slashing at all. In a short while, they were all gone. As for the dark clouds that had gathered in the sky, he had a flash of inspiration and changed the hard blade into a normal broadsword form. Only then would it look more imposing. Talent. The system said, the host is really a talent. Strange. Jun Changshao was puzzled. I've killed all the battlefield ghosts. Why haven't I completed the side quest? Just as he was about to escape from the siege, the side quest was triggered. The content was to get rid of all the battlefield ghosts. In that case. Then let's fight to our heart's content, fight to the death. Perhaps, the system said, what's the follow-up? This guy's mouth was blessed. Because just as he finished speaking, black streams of light suddenly descended from the sky and merged into the broken armors scattered all over the ground. Then, they quickly gathered together and turned into a huge black energy ball. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A shocking aura spread out from within, and the space in the sealed area was completely shattered. Boom. Suddenly, a large battlefield ghost that was 200 feet tall walked out of the black energy ball. Whether it was its head or body, it was made of broken armor. Its pair of big red eyes emitted an explosive aura. This momentum, Mo Shangsheng said in shock, could it be the Heaven Ascension realm? The Heaven Ascension realm was the strongest realm in the 9 Heavens Continents martial arts realm system, corresponding to the martial emperor realm of the Falling Star continent and the Soul Race continent. The experts from the other existential planes were also dumbfounded. According to the rules of the higher realm, the dimensional battlefield did not allow cultivators stronger than Heaven class to enter. Now, in order to punish Jun Changshao, they had actually sent out such a battlefield specter. Or should he say it? That fellow's current strength had already surpassed the Heaven class, and the upper realm had no choice but to send someone of the same level to deal with him. No, no. It was impossible for him to have such terrifying strength. It should be related to the weapon he was holding. Martial Emperor. Jun Changxiao's lips curled into a disdainful smile. Everyone was speechless. At a time like this, he could still laugh. Shwa. The huge battlefield specter raised its hand, and a huge black scythe appeared. The red light in its eyes became more and more intense. Husband, be careful. Rose Queen said telepathically, this is a true realm powerhouse. Judging from his aura, he seems to be much stronger than the handsome man. She believed that it was stronger than the Starry Sky Navigator King because the battlefield specter's body was made up of 100,000 of its kind. Its defense was extremely high, and the scythe it summoned was not inferior to her Red Lotus demonic moon blade. Don't get in the way. Stay away, Jun Changshao said coldly. Whoosh. Rose Queen flew back and stopped at the edge of the seal. She thought to herself, why don't you use the word scram? Shwa. At this moment, the super battlefield specter waved the scythe in its hand and slashed out a huge ray of light. It was as if it had instantly cut the world into two. Whoosh. Jun Changxiao's body flashed and dodged calmly. However, the area where the terrifying light tore apart suddenly showed a spatial crack that seemed to be impossible to heal. That's too scary. If this kind of power erupts in our plane, the entire continent will suffer a huge disaster. Because of the seal sealing the area, the spectating martial artists could not feel the strongest aura that filled the air. However, from the scene of tearing space, they could infer that it was definitely at the level of destroying the world. Boom! The light of the scythe came into contact with the ground, and a huge and deep trench instantly appeared. Rose Queen, who was at the edge of the area, condensed a barrier in front of her to resist the roaring residual power. She was shocked and said, what a terrifying power. The next second, the expression on her face became dull. Because in her field of vision, Jun Changshao was already suspended in front of the super battlefield specter. Against the huge body, he looked like a weak ant. Why did he fly over? Did he want to die? All the martial artists also noticed, and the expressions on their faces became more and more interesting. Shouldn't such a terrifying and powerful existence be avoided as far as possible? Why did that guy send himself in front of it? Was he not afraid that it would backhand him? As expected, the super battlefield specter realized that its target had appeared in front of it. It raised its huge scythe and slashed it. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The wind from the scythe exploded and cut the space. However, the moment he touched Jun Changshao, the unstoppable blade in his right hand transformed into the shape of a scythe and slashed through the void with a swoosh. Poochie, the scythe swept past, and the wrist of the super battlefield specter fell off. Whoosh whoosh. Because it lost its center of gravity and the movement of its palm, the huge scythe that carried a powerful force swept past Jun Changshao. At the moment it swept past, the surface of the scythe reflected his incomparably cold and arrogant face. Boom! The scythe and the entire right hand collided with the ground, stirring up waves of dust. During the whole process, Jun Changshao didn't move his body except for swinging his scythe. His expression was neither sad nor happy. It could be said that he was extremely pretentious. Rose Queen was dumbfounded. All the martial artists opened their mouths in shock. An even more powerful creature formed from the shattered armors of 100,000 battlefield ghosts had its right arm cut off so easily. That guy's weapon was too sharp. Swish. 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 The scythe's light flickered frequently. After a fierce operation, Jun Changshao lowered the scythe at an angle. Caw caw caw. Caw caw caw. The cracking sound was extremely clear and entered the ears of all the martial artists. Everyone's eyes gradually widened. Even those with single eyelids and small eyes were almost the size of eggs. What did they see? They saw fine horizontal and vertical marks appear behind the super battlefield specter. When combined, they were as dense as the chess lines on a chessboard. Bang! Bang! After a while, the mountain-like super battlefield specter instantly disintegrated. Pieces of its body scattered on the ground. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Jun Changshao had disintegrated the ghost of the battlefield, which was above the heavens, just like that. Ding! Side mission completed. Host has received 100,000 contribution points. Ding! 1700070000. Ding! Sect contribution points overflow. Ding! Side mission completed. Hidden rewards triggered. Received Lingyan Pavilion's exclusive Divine Weapon Modification Stone X2. Received Hidden Sect Function Title Pavilion. Jun Changshao thought to himself, so this big guy is the last one. Huff huff. At this moment, the dark clouds that had been cut off appeared again. Then, they filled the sky above the seal. Powerful lightning snakes shot out from them. The powerful lightning power instantly filled the surroundings. Jun Changshao has repeatedly violated the rules. Heaven and earth cannot tolerate this. Lightning punishment is activated. A deep voice resounded throughout the dimensional battlefield. Damn it! Jun Changshao said angrily. Is there no end to this? Boom! Boom! In an instant, 2 lightning bolts that were enough to illuminate the night sky descended from the rolling dark clouds at the same time. One was locked onto him. The other was locked onto, boom. Boom. The 2 lightning powers from the upper realm instantly exploded in the sealed area. The scene that appeared in an instant was like a nuclear explosion. The intense light produced was so bright that the martial artists could not open their eyes. They could only raise their hands to block their vision. Chapter 1181. In the dimensional battlefield, Jun Changshao had experienced a lightning punishment before. However, it was slightly different this time because it was not a punishment, but a sanction. Therefore, without even going through the brewing process, 2 lightning bolts shot out from the dark clouds. Not only was it sudden, but it was also fast. Its power was also much stronger than the previous lightning punishment. One could tell from the scene that looked like a nuclear explosion. My eyes. Ah! Those martial artists who were close to the sealed area and were only at the yellow level temporarily lost their vision due to the strong light. Their eyes were in extreme pain. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, in the area of the lightning punishment, the violent lightning energy flew everywhere. Unfortunately, it was restricted before it reached the barrier of the seal. Otherwise, once it broke through, the terrifying aftershock would definitely affect half of the dimensional battlefield. The millions of martial artists who were watching the show would also suffer heavy casualties. From this, it could be seen that the upper realm's punishment of Jun Changshao was clearly planned and well thought out. It was definitely not done on the spot. It's over. It's over. Kujin closed her eyes. The pain of losing a good friend appeared on her face. The strong light just now was enough to show that the lightning punishment from the upper realm was absolutely terrifying. Jun Changshao would definitely not be able to withstand it. Sigh. Mo Shangsheng shook his head and sighed. It was undeniable that he had been severely blackmailed by Jun Changshao. However, they had worked together after all. He had even earned a lot of money from healing pills. Now that he had personally witnessed Jun Changshao die under the lightning punishment, it was quite sad and regretful. Jun Patriarch. Mustang Xing thought to himself, your actions today will definitely leave your name in the annals of history. The powerhouses from other dimensions thought so too. Even the Scarlet Sea continent and the Lingyun continent, who had been blackmailed many times before, were now full of admiration for Jun Changshao. Some said that they had come to watch the show and would definitely be blackmailed by Go Sheng. If Jun Patriarch was still alive, they would not take the initiative to blackmail him. They would give him money and resources on their own just to respect this true man who dared to fight against the heavens. In the endless starry sky. On a colorful throne, a graceful woman surrounded by clouds leaned gently against the back of the chair. Sigh. The stooped old man beside him shook his head helplessly. That little guy had to endure such a strong lightning punishment. He was definitely dead. Empress Lingyao. In the distant starry sky, a valiant and extraordinary golden-armored man was sitting on a war chariot in a domineering manner. He crossed his legs and said with a smile, "Did I go a little too hard on the martial practitioners of your falling star continent?" Empress Lingyao fell silent. "You can't blame me for that." The golden-armored man pretended to be helpless as he spread out his hands and said, "Who asked that fellow to break the rules again and again? The Realm Hall was worried that you would cover up for him, so they had no choice but to let me take charge of the punishment this time." Jin Hao. Empress Ling Yao said coldly, "I hope that after the continent you came from enters the planar battlefield, I won't be able to get my hands on you." TSK TSK. The golden-armored man said, "You're clearly retaliating." All of a sudden, his face shrouded in the supreme power Upanishad looked surprised. He stooped to look down. His sharp eyes seemed to pierce through the void, gazing at the sealed area where the lightning punishment had struck. The hunchbacked old man's expression changed slightly, and he transmitted his voice, "Master, that brat is not dead." "I see." Empress Ling Yao responded calmly, but her heart was filled with surprise. Jin Hao, who was in charge of the punishment, had used 100% of the lightning punishment's power. There shouldn't be any living thing in the mortal realm that could withstand it. The scene returned to the battlefield, back to the sealed area. The violent lightning element gradually dissipated, and the blurry figure of a person gradually became clear. The cultivators who had just opened their eyes and adjusted to the new environment immediately noticed it. Their expressions instantly stiffened. June Patriarch, he's still alive. Mo Shangshan was so shocked that his hands were trembling violently. Such a terrifying lightning punishment, once struck, would definitely be reduced to ashes. Now that a human figure had suddenly appeared, it meant that his physical body hadn't been destroyed. It meant that there was still a chance of survival. Although it was inconceivable, although it was hard to believe, but when Jun Changshao clearly appeared in front of everyone's eyes, they couldn't help but admit that this really had happened. Such a terrifying lightning punishment, but his body was completely unharmed. Jun Patriarch. Ji Nan couldn't care less about the occasion and his demeanor as he roared, "Badass." His vulgar words instantly resonated with the cultivators' ears. One cultivator after another yelled, "Jun Patriarch, badass. Jun Patriarch, badass. Jun Patriarch, badass." Hundreds of thousands of powerful cultivators were yelling, "Badass," in unison. Although the scene wasn't too flashy, it was still enough to shake the heavens and the earth. Jun Changshao gradually straightened his back as everyone cheered. Crack crack. The charred ground beneath his feet cracked and spread like a spiderweb. Whoosh! Jun Changshao stood proudly with his back straight. He held the Rose Empress in his arms and looked up at the sky with a cold gaze. "What other punishments do you have? Bring them all out." His sharp gaze seemed to pierce through the void as he stared directly at the man in golden armor. The latter's killing intent surged as he uttered the most classic Xuanhuan line. "This kid cannot be allowed to live." Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, he activated the second lightning punishment. Empress Ling Yao replied calmly, "Since the establishment of the planar battlefield, there has been a written rule stating that if a mortal cultivator survives the lightning punishment, they will not be held accountable for any wrongdoings. Have you, as the previous warden, forgotten this?" The man in golden armor's hand froze in mid-air as he dismissed the thought. "I would have forgotten if you hadn't mentioned it." Empress Ling Yao said calmly, "Since the lightning punishment didn't do anything to this kid, all crimes have been forgiven. You can go back and report to the Realm Hall." "All right." The man in golden armor turned the chariot around. However, before he left, he said, "Empress Ling Yao, the Realm Hall has been keeping an eye on you. Don't do anything stupid. You think the Realm Hall is only paying attention to me and not you?" The woman was still shrouded in clouds, making it difficult to see her expression. "Ha ha ha." The man in golden armor laughed. "I've always been a law-abiding citizen. Why would the Realm Hall pay attention to me?" Then, his voice suddenly lowered. "Some people, on the other hand, really do need to be wary. Don't think that no one knows what you're doing in the dark. Let's go, let's go." Whoosh! The chariot flashed and disappeared without a trace. Empress Ling Yao was silent for a while, then left with the stooped old man. The planar battlefield. Jun Changshao, surrounded by a terrifying aura, seemed to sense it. He looked away and lowered his head, his voice cold. "Done hugging?" "No." Empress Rose pressed against his chest, her eyes closed. "Let me snuggle a little longer." Jun Changshao threw her off, his face dark. He raised his hand and called back the sky hegemon spear and green dragon crescent blade nailed to the mountain peak. Buzz! All of a sudden, the barrier around them disappeared. The punishment from the upper realm was over. Jun Changshao had survived once again, and under the watchful eyes of millions of cultivators, you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.